As we all know, the Yomi community is very friendly and welcoming and warming, especially when you talk about balanced discussions. And of course, there's no disagreement between any of the groups there. That being said, I'm going to end that today with a ranking, a tier list of sorts, ranking every single move in Yomi Hustle. I know, pretty impressive. Every single move? That's all 24 of them. Don't double check that math. I'm going to rank the moves based on how good they are compared to moves of similar types, how good they are in their own characters' kits, and how good they are versus other characters' kits. And with that, let's begin. We'll start, random order. We'll start with whatever is on top of the list right now. What's that? So we're starting with triple combo up. Now, triple combo up and down are pretty similar, so they're probably going to go in the same ranking. Spoiler alert. Um, it's kind of rough. The thing about triple combo up and down is they're pretty much unusable in neutral. Uh, the thing about triple combo up and down is they're pretty much unusable in neutral. Where, yes, you can use them for like some block string stuff, but generally it isn't really worth it. You want to be pulling out gun, you want to use vertical slash because that's better. Like, it isn't bad, but it's like, it's not in the position you want to be. You want to be playing around your foresight, playing around with gun, and that's just a lot better generally and even easier to set up. In combos, however, they can do a lot of damage, and they're pretty easy to follow up on. The problem is, while they do a lot of damage, yes, and they are easy to follow up on, yes, they aren't exactly easy to set up. Like, mechanically, you can learn the spacing and whatnot, but you have to usually spend a meter on a teleport, or have the extra frames for a foresight into a shift, and that just takes a lot of time. So these moves really aren't that great. Plus, they're not particularly good against any other character. They fill a niche that, like, a lot of other moves don't in Cowboy's kit, where they're kind of slow, aerial, big damage attacks. Which, like, you don't really have that, you know? Like, the closest thing you probably have is, like, Pistol Whip, like a gun move. Like, it's not a lot of options for, like, that there. But at the same time, like, Cowboy doesn't really need those. So I'm going to put it in C. Not a move that you wouldn't use, but a move you wouldn't. That has a niche, but you wouldn't want to use it like most of the time. And the same kind of argument applies for downward. Downward, here, I'll rank them in the order of the tiers as well, because I like when that happens. Downward is a little bit better because you can teleport up and then go down, and then you're closer to the ground. Because teleporting does use an air option. Where if you're out of air options, you can't even use triple combo up. So that's that. I should also explain the tiers themselves. So like there is a clear idea of where I'm going to put the things before I put them in there. D is useless. There's no way that this move. There's nothing that this move does that something else does better or that you would want this move to do. C is this move's bad, but it has a niche. There's something it can do sometimes. It can do something really well, but only in a specific scenario. Or it doesn't really do anything well, but it's like okay. It's a good move, but there's just another move that's better like most of the time that you can use anyways, and it's like it's just kind of mid essentially. B is a move that is solid. I should slow down a bit. Whew. B is a move that's like solid. There is either a specific niche for this move, or there is a good reason to use this move over others. However, there are some drawbacks to it. Maybe the move is very punishable. Maybe it's not usable not very available. Maybe it's hard to use, but it fills a good niche. If triple combo was filling a really good niche that Cowboy needed, it would be in B, for example. A is a move that fills a good niche and you use a lot. Now, it's not going to be the best move in every scenario, but there are a lot of scenarios where it is the best option. It's pretty simple. And then S tier is the best of the best. These are the moves you want to be trying to get off on pretty much every single way. These are the moves you want to get off in every single situation as often as possible. These are very oppressive moves that define the metagame. So yeah. And then we have 1,000 Cuts. Now, 1,000 Cuts. Whew. 1,000 Cuts is a move that costs 3 meter and activates a whole bunch of repeating hitboxes in front of Cowboy. And I don't think it's controversial to say it sucks. You can't use teleport or impale and still get it, which is where a lot of its power previously came from. So it's lost a lot of power, but still remains the same cost. 3 meter is a lot that Cowboy would rather spend it on. It's not particularly good, and it's really bad against high mobility characters that can just run right up and just parry all them over and over again. It isn't it isn't the worst move, but it basically has no niche. You'd rather be using teleports. You'd rather be even if you have a lot of meter, you'd rather be using temporal round. You'd rather be using all of those moves than 1,000 Cuts. It does open up some new moves, but we'll get onto those. Those moves aren't great, spoiler alert. At the same time, however, if you have a lot of meter, I can see why you'd want to use this. And in combos, it can help you get out some extra damage, although it can also drop your combos sometimes, which is not nice. It's kind of a mixed bag in that area. But I will admit that it isn't the worst move in existence. But it's close. And because of that, I'm going to put it on the bottom of C tier. But a very, very narrowly avoided D tier. Fatal Cut. Now, I'll admit, I'm not a big Cowboy player, right? Even though Cowboy is the meta, and this is like a new move introduced, this meta. But, you don't really see Cowboys using this move often. And for good reason. It's not very good. First of all, you have to use a 3 meter move, which means you're not going to be using it for, like, the first combo of the game, like, until someone gets a hit or the game just goes on for really long because you guys are stalling or whatever. But you need a 3 meter cost of entry that ends that 3 meters. That basically you have to spend 3 meters and then for one attack. It's crazy. It's crazy expensive. It's a 5 frame move that is like pretty fast, pretty big. It's good in terms of like raw data, but that raw data doesn't outweigh the cost of it. And honestly, I think I would rather just have the 3,000 cuts running than have that move available. The only time you're going to be using this is when the move would disappear anyway, or your own 1,000 cuts is biting you in the ass. It's not. It's not something you want to use, really. It seems so wasteful because it is wasteful. And because of that, I think that's going to be our first D tier move because there's no situation you'd want to use this in, really. And the situations that you do are so few and far between that I can't honestly give it a C rating. Okay, jumping into Mutant and some of Mutant's moves. We have Horizontal Slash. Horizontal Horizontal Acid Slash, that's what it is. It's not good. It's not good. It has kind of the same problem. Okay, here's the thing with Mutant. With Mutant, he doesn't really need big, slow moves. He has a bunch of really fast moves where, like, having those fast moves allows him to not need a huge amount of block advantage. Like, even getting off a +1, that turns his frame 3 um, swipe into a frame 2, where other characters will turn their frame 4 into a frame 3, which is a big deal, because that's the line where like grabs and jabs are all coalesced. And like even slower moves like low swipe and slash and that kind of stuff go from like 5 frame moves to 4 frame moves, which are good to tie with jabs. So it's not like you need a ton of block advantage, right? And even less than that, you don't need a ton of slow moves because you don't want to take those risks. There's no reason to take those risks when other slow moves can get you that block advantage better. Low swipe, even though it's a +0, who's going to be blocking low versus mutant? Low swipe is Low swipe is like the only move. I think it is the only move. We'll see if we come up on another one. I'll remember if I see it in the list. But low swipe is the only move that hits low. So to block low, you are predicting the low swipe. So that means it only gets parried or you get the +2. And the same thing goes for um, his other moves where it's like, and the same thing earlier applies to his other moves where a +1's enough because they're all pretty fast. And if your opponent blocks low, expecting the low swipe, and you go +3, you're just winning so hard from very little risk. You don't need to do anything for your opponent to screw themselves over by trying to predict you. And the real nail in the coffin for me is how outclassed this move is by moves like corkscrew. When you're talking about slow moves, you're talking about when you're talking about the benefit of slow moves in neutral, you're talking about one of two things. Either they do something special, like guard break, like a command grab. Um, they give you a lot of block advantage. +3 is pretty good, thunderclap. Or they give you a lot of chip. And Mutant does really value chip. Because combos can be very easily dropped from Mutant. And if you want chip, if you want block stun, if you want chip, if you want block advantage, if you want basically anything horizontal acid slash could provide, corkscrew does it better. And it's when you put that into perspective, it's like, why would you ever click this move? I don't. That doesn't make sense. And I think, yeah, corkscrew is faster. It gives you more pips of juke, which mutant does value a lot. It gives you more chip. It puts you in a better position. It gives you the same amount of block advantage. It's better in almost every regard. It moves you further to the corner where you probably want to be. It's better in every single way. Except for no, no. Even the range it outclasses horizontal acid slash. And it's not like it's great in combos either. I mean, it's okay in combos, but when you're talking about mutant combos, you really only need a few moves. And moves like horizontal acid slash, which are liable to drop at high DI modifiers, just aren't good enough. And because it's completely outclassed, I think I am going to put it completely below D tier, which I'm going to put it in D tier at the very bottom. Because there is very few situations where there's no situations where you want to use this move. That's what all the D tier is going to be. You don't want to use this move. It sucks. This sucks. Vertical acid slash, though. Vertical acid slash. This move's a lot better. First of all, because it actually does cover a niche that Mutant does not have in abundance, which is vertically attacking moves in the air. Vertical aerial moves. Where when you're looking at other options than this for vertical air moves, you're looking at like swipe, you're looking at corkscrew, which is like yikes. Those are not the best options. Like 11 frames, 5 frames, but small hitbox. They're not great. And vertical acid slash actually kind of fills a good niche in that regard, where it's not fast, but it's 10 frames fast, which means your opponent can't just click wait because waiting is 10 frames without risking getting hit, which is really, really good. If it was 11 frames, it'd be a lot worse because corkscrew is 11 frames. And it covers a big area. It's got a fair amount of hit stun. It's not good in combos like at all. It is downright awful in combos. But I think its neutral ability and the niche that it fulfills is significant enough to put it in a B tier. So I'm gonna leave it right where it is. And when we in the upcoming moves, I'm gonna know a lot more about the robot moves. For example, what we're coming up right now, Concussive Blast. Concussive Blast. I'm gonna know a lot more about robots' moves and mechanics, because obviously I played Robot for almost 1,000 hours at this point. It's crazy. Um, so my ratings on those are gonna be a lot more accurate, and I think a lot more fair, because I hate other characters. Hate, hate, hate. Um, Concussive Blast, though, Concussive Blast is a very reliable move. That's what I'll say. It consistently does one thing, and it's very good at that one thing. And that one thing is being a fast move that has 20 frames of hit stun. That's like it. And I say that's it, but sometimes that's all you need to do to be a good move. When you compare it to like other options in Robot's kit, you have the 4-frame key punch, the 5-frame bounce check, and the 6-frame ping. Now, if you were to compare this side by side by the 4-frame key punch, yes, it is slower, but it covers way more of an area. It can't be like low profile, which is a really annoying thing that happens with the key punch. It has way more hit stun, and is actually usable in a combo. So it's pretty good. And then against ping, yeah, like ping is a great move. I'll get to that later on, but it can't be used in a combo, you know? Like, and then bounce check same can't be used in a combo. All the other quick moves can't be used in the way that Concussive Blast is. And Concussive Blast is probably the second most important move in Robot's combo kit. It allows Robot to extend his combos on, which is really, really important if you see my combo guide, because the more time you spend in a Robot's combo, the more damage he's going to deal. It's a very, very good move. Probably one of Robot's best moves, which is very good. Where I'm having trouble, because otherwise, if this was just a great move all around, it was the best everywhere, it would just be a S tier move, right? The problem I'm having with it is it's not quite good enough. Yes, it's a good move, but when you compare it to other moves, right, it's still frame 5. When you compare it to other characters' kits, you can't just walk up and throw out a concussive. Yes, if you have block advantage. Yes, if you're spaced correctly. Concussive is better than a jab just outright. It's just better than key punch. But sometimes that one extra frame of difference of time between key punch and concussive blast is hugely important. So I'm having a hard time putting it in an S because yes, it excels in combos and it is often the best move to use in a situation, but it's not always the best. Not always the best. You don't always want to be using concussive, especially because it's one of the most parried for moves because it also shares a block timing with bounce check, which is a guard break, which people really don't want to be hit with. Through that reasoning, I'm going to put it in A tier. Swipe. Ooh, swipe. I touched on this a bit earlier, but air swipe is really not that good. It's usable in a combo early on when the DI modifier is low, but every move kinda is. And like it's okay in neutral, like it's fast, 5 frames is fast. But you also have shred, which can, if you juke it to the ground, can be 3 frames, but even normally is 4 frames, and gives you more juke pips. It's not super useful when you compare it like that because neither of these moves are going to be doing a huge amount of damage in combo and in neutral. So really, all you're caring about with those two moves is speed. And if you're just comparing speed, it's just a worse version of Shred. It can be used to do some interesting stuff where you can use ground moves in the air, but it doesn't really come up. Mutant likes being on the ground sometimes, anyways. Having the 4 frame and the 5 frame mix up though is nice. Like you wouldn't want to have only 4 frame moves because then it'd be very easy to just block against you the whole time. And 5 frame move isn't slow. It ties with other anti-airs like backslash. Um, but you do have to be close as well, and it does lose to pommels and jabs and stuff like that. And it's like that's not super great. It's not a bad move by any means, but it's not. Swipe isn't a bad move by any means, but it's not the best move to use in almost any situation. It's not the most rewarding move to use in any situation, but it's also not the most risky to use in any situation. It's fairly safe almost all of the time. So I think I'll put it at the top of C tier. I think it's probably better than the triple combos, just because neutral is far more important than combos, where if you have a strong neutral, you can win the game. But if you have no neutral and a really strong combo, you can't win the game. In this tier list, I'm going to value moves that help you win in neutral more than they help you in combo. So hopefully that makes sense. Air Dash. Air Dash is very, very, very good. Especially in this new metagame where there is less air options given around. Characters are more incentivized to be on the ground because of the limited air options. But because of that also, jumping is less incentivized. Where if you're in the air and you're out of air options, that can suck. But for Cowboy, this move is really, really good. When you look at what the rest of Cowboy has, this is basically saying, yeah, you've used your jump, but now you can just keep using your air options even though you don't have any. It's really, really, it's kind of cheater. It's like a cheater move. And you might think like, oh well, you can only go down with this, right? You can't like go in the air and then keep stalling up forever. But the key part is you get to choose which direction you go. You can go straight down or you can go to left and right. And if your opponent's below you trying to shark you with anti-airs or throw projectiles to interrupt you or generally trying to build advantage, you can immediately just throw all that away, all that effort that your opponent put into their setup by dashing the different direction. And you can do this every turn until you get close to the ground. And that's what makes it so good. In a ton of scenarios, this is the best move. And it's nearly unpunishable. Yes, the backwards version does have increased lag when your opponent does some movement option and stuff, but that hardly ever comes up, especially because it's so free to use this, you can just choose not to. It's very, very good. At the same time, it doesn't get you much. Yes, you can restore essentially the game state to completely neutral with like nothing by getting away from all your opponent's stuff, but your opponent can also just choose to not do anything either, and you're not gaining anything by doing this move. Still, it is very safe and helps Cowboy's kit out a lot. Cowboy very desperately needs good movement tools, especially in the air. If you took away this, all he would have in the air is jump, and one of those, which is like would be devastating for Cowboy, because Cowboy's air RPS is rock paper scissors is not super great. It's not the worst, but it's not super great. So this move really, it's very important and it patches up a lot of his weak spots. So I'm going to say it is A tier. Not the best, not one of the best, but, no, beating over there. Not one of the best, but still very good. Better than concussive. Ankle cutter. Ankle cutter is a C tier move. I think ankle cutter is a C tier move. The reason ankle cutter is a C tier move is because there's not very good reason to use it. Most of the time it is a +2, but it's a 7 frame move, so if you're going to be using it, you might as well use vertical slash, which is 9 frames and can't be jumped over, and is a lot safer. The 2 frames, like, the thing is, the thing about frames in this game is the difference between 3 and 4 is huge. That is a huge difference. The difference between 8 and 9 isn't so much. Simply because if people aren't using their fastest moves, they're going to be using their slowest moves. Because that's how the game works. That's how the game works. if you're using your slowest move, let me try to explain this. Let's say you were in a close range RPS situation, right? If your opponent uses a fast move, if you don't use your fast move to contest it, you die. However, if your opponent uses a slow move, you can also use a slow move to contest it, or a fast move to contest it. So it doesn't really matter there, because either way, if you're not clicking a fast move, the it's water explain. Cut that out. Cut that out. So basically, in this game, slow moves they can be pretty slow, and it doesn't matter as much. Yes, it still somewhat matters, but it doesn't matter as much. That being said, it's the problem is like it can be jumped over, which isn't good. I mean, you're not losing because of it, but that's not a good thing. That's a bad thing for it. It's not. It's awful in combos, pretty much. Like sometimes you'll use it, yes, because nothing else will hit. That's not exactly the move you want to be using in combos. And if you get in that situation, frankly, you're probably doing the combo poorly. Like you shouldn't be using ankle cutter. Not. It very rarely wins in ways that um, horizontal slash and vertical slash do. Where with horizontal slash you can outrange your opponent, and with vertical slash you can get a ton of block advantage. Whereas like this doesn't really get a lot of block advantage, and it isn't really quick either, and it isn't huge like both of those moves are, both of the earlier moves. And it's just kind of bad. Now, the thing that the positives of this move is it is pretty safe. Where in terms of a slow move, it's one of the safest. Where it's who's gonna parry for low, right? No one's gonna parry for low. Parrying low, it's very very rare. So it means it's almost never gonna be parried. It does cover a lot of space close to the cowboy, which is good. It doesn't cost meter or anything like Thousand Cuts does, and mm, I would say is generally worse than triple combo up and down. Just like it doesn't have a strong niche, like it's usable, but other moves do what it does better. But at the same time, it doesn't have a high cost investment like these two, and it isn't completely outclassed by another move like this one is, because this one can attack low, which sometimes is valuable. Backslash, backslash. Backslash is good. I'd say backslash is good. Now, backslash is a little bit complicated because the inner hitbox uh, is actually punishable on soft block, technically. Hardly ever comes up, but it technically is. And when in the inside it's 5 frames and the outside is 7 frames. It's actually one of the quickest anti-airs in the game and also one of the largest. It's a very good anti-air. Because it's a good anti-air, it also gets parry fished a lot. But that's actually pretty good for the cowboy. Because that when it's being parry fished for a lot, that means it's exerting a lot of pressure. And if you don't do it one turn, you can always do it the next turn. And it's a plus to put you in a good situation to either run away and find better spacing or go on the offensive. It's very good at controlling the space that it's intended to control. And that's probably the best thing for an anti-air. At the same time, while it is good, it's good as an anti-air. It's not something you want to be using all the time. It's very good. It's very, very good. Probably the best in its specified role, but it's not good in very like other roles. Like if your opponent's in front of you on the ground, like kind of mid-range, you're not going to be wanting using backslash. You can use it close range, but it's not the best in close range. So that you probably want to use like pommel or grab, or you can use like downward cleat to avoid grabs and stuff. And it just doesn't cover any of those. It can't plan for any of those, which is not good. But it does, again, it's probably the best anti-air in the game. Or one of the best in the game. And because of that, I'm going to put it A tier somewhere. Question is, where in A tier? Do I think it is better than concussive? I didn't speak about the combo utility of this because generally you don't want to be using it in combos. It can be used in combos and it gives you a fair good amount of frames. but it's not super good. It can drop at high DI modifiers, but so do a lot of moves. It's unusual for a move not to drop at high DI modifiers. But I do think it is better than Concussive Blast. Because Concussive Blast is generally good and pretty good in specific scenarios, where Backslash is very, very, very good in one scenario and kind of bad in the others. But I think being very highly specialized is good. Backsway. Backsway is. It's a hard to rank move. That's what I'll say. Because it does something very unique. And that is a defensive option that isn't super punishable. Because it leads you into the backsway stance, which has Palm Strike, which is a 3-frame move. Also has Grab, another 3-frame move. So if you want to call it out, you have to do a pretty risky option up close. And backsway, you're only going to be using this up close or for burst baits, because it does also avoid burst, which is pretty insane, like a pretty insane utility that is pretty. It also burst bait, which is a very insane utility that not many other moves have. It's crazy. It's very crazy. The problem with it is it's also not super great outside of those contexts. It's like backslash in a way where, yes, it is very good in those two scenarios, but it's not quite good anywhere else. It's actually, I would say it's downright awful other places. There's no reason to be using There's no reason to be using backslash. There's no reason to be using backsway unless you are in the face of your opponent. And you can do some tricky stuff with like flipping it, but it's pretty much just a worse version of backslash in terms of utility. Because one, its reward is a lot worse. Two, it's pretty much just like a worse specialized version of backslash. Like, yes, it beats burst, which is a very unique thing, but your opponent isn't really going to be bursting super often. You'll probably see maybe 3 or 4 bursts from your opponent at maximum in a match. So that's what, 3 or 4 opportunities for this move to do its specialized thing? I don't know. And then up close, when you use it, like, yes, it's tricky, it's a defensive option, but like much like with air dash, defensive options can only get you so far. You can't win a game with purely defensive options. So because of that, I think I'm going to put it just below backslash. I think it's better than concussive because there are situations where you can get free damage from it, unlike concussive. And yes, the burst baiting is actually a very key part of why this move is special and is good. And I think, yes, the burst baiting is a very key part of why this move is good and should be highly ranked. But concussive doesn't like have that kind of stuff, you know? Caustic Barrage, and I am rating both the upwards and downward version in the same slot, even though they are technically different moves and have different icons and stuff. I'm rating them as the same move because they essentially are the same move with different angles. Caustic Barrage is pretty good. No, it's okay, it's mid. Caustic Barrage is mid. And I'll tell you why. Caustic Barrage is unparryable, which is super good for a projectile. It's fast, it's pretty much unpunishable, it covers a huge area, it's okay in combos, but it's like the reward for hitting this is very, very little. Like, yes, if you hit it raw on your opponent without them blocking, it's fine. But it's only fine. Because the thing is about Caustic Barrage is it pushes you away. So if you're on the ground and you use it against an area blocking opponent, you're going to be hitting like 2 of those darts, getting +2, and then not really being able to follow up on it. And if you use it from the air, you're going to be sent higher up in the air, and it's going to be hard for you to follow up on it. In combos, it can get you good damage, right? It doesn't scale the combo, so that's like okay. But at the same time, it costs 1 meter, and would you rather save that meter for Howl? Maybe. Having jukes is probably more important than having damage. At the same time, Mutant's projectiles don't cover the space that Caustic does, right? It does have a solid niche where, like, it works as essentially Mutant's anti-air, and it's pretty good at that role. And it can also work as a anti-air to ground setup with juke, where you can move a lot and shoot it to dissuade your opponent from setting up, which is a pretty solid role. But it's not exceptional in any way, really. I'll put it above vertical acid slash. It's just better. Oh boy, and Venom. And Venom. And Venom is really bad, I think. Now, I'll put it up on screen now for, or editing me will put it up on screen now for anyone who doesn't know, but there is a pretty devious setup you can create where it's a 50-50 between the mutant holding the caustic spike and you taking a bunch of damage if you don't block, or the mutant canceling the caustic spike and you taking a full combo and then resetting, which is pretty devious. But that comes more down to that's a three move combo. It's a three-parter, and really, Envenom isn't the key part of that three-part combo. And then if you take it outside of that three-part combo, it's really bad. If you miss this move, you will have to use your whiff cancel, or you will get punished. Like 99% of the time. It's super risky, and what do you get for landing it? You poison your opponent, which is like okay, it's pretty bad, right, for your opponent. But is it really worth the risk? I would say no. I would say a firm no. It's not worth that risk. Secondly, Mutant doesn't really need the command grab. Like beating block is something Mutant isn't super great at, but Mutant doesn't need to beat block. You can very easily get by with doing chip damage and just attacking when your opponent tries to fight back. Because if your opponent can't sit and block all game and win, they have to attack at some point, and you can very easily counter those attacks with your myriad of options. So Envenom just really doesn't hold a strong place in Mutant's set. At the same time, that setup is pretty good, and it wouldn't work without Envenom. So I think it does hold some niche, even though that niche is very small. And again, it doesn't have even though it has a high drawback, it doesn't have a cost to entry. So if your move doesn't have a cost associated with using it, it is going to be ranked higher, even if that move is bad. Unless the move is really bad or really outclassed. It just goes to show horizontal acid slash is not very good. In my opinion. Next, we're ranking Magma Bolt. Magma Bolt is one of Wizard's two anti-airs. And I put those in finger quotes because uh, it's uh, it's not quite the anti-air that backslash is. It's not as good as attacking opponents in the air. So it doesn't cover enough space to be considered an anti-air really. It's not small by any means, but it is not the behemoth that backslash is. In exchange, however, it is very, very quick and very, very quick to recover from. Which means often you don't even need to free cancel this move. And sometimes it's not even punishable on parry, which is crazy to think about. depending on game factors, of course. And that's just a great thing to have on a move, where it's like, yeah, if your move can't be punished even on parry, that's that's good. However, the negatives kind of start to roll in once you think about the situations you'd want to use this move in, where your opponent is slightly above you, and you don't want them to approach you. You want to, it's kind of a get off me move. It does have a lot of block advantage, by the way, if you hit it, but you, as Wizard, especially as Wizard, you don't ever want the opponent to be above you. It's a really bad situation if your opponent is above you in the position that Magma Bolt will hit. It's not a bad move. It is actually kind of a good move, but the situations you want to use it are bad. It's not it's not good. So if you're using this, you're already kind of playing poorly and in a bad position. Or I guess they're calling out jump, but there are better ways to do that. Just like Magma Bolt, it's not good. It's not good. But statistically, it's a good move. Situationally, it's not. I think it's probably better. It's probably better than Caustic Barrage. Yep, that's what it's called. But no, it's worse than Caustic Barrage, but better than Vertical Slash. Because Vertical Slash is kind of carried by Juke to give it more range, and Magma Bolt kind of always does the same thing. It also kind of has anti-synergy with Orb, where you just rather it not send out the Orb Dart most of the time. So, it's an okay move. Like again, statistically, Magma Bolt is a very good move. Situationally, I don't know why you would want to use this move most of the time. Yes, if you're in that situation, great option, probably one of the best options. But you don't want to be in that situation often. Boost. Okay, this one's going to be a bit controversial because Boost, again, statistically, a very, very good move. It is completely invulnerable on initiative. It is 6 frames, fairly fast, and if your opponent does anything, you pretty much beat it. It costs 1 meter in exchange, which isn't a lot, actually. And especially on Robot, who has a lot of meter to spare, it's a very statistically good move. However, this is the big but. But you have to be in car mode to use it. And car mode as it is in 1.9.0 or 1.9.23, I think it's at right now, is not good. Even up to lay it out, this is gonna be reiterated in all my future car mode moves. Car mode is really bad. Approaching your opponent is punished. Not approaching your opponent is punished. Trying to attack, it's slow. It's punished. By quick moves, trying to do a quick move, oh wait, you don't have those. Car mode is really, really bad. And you have to take a ton of risks to get in this mode. And if you're playing it safe, for example, by using car mode when your opponent is getting up and can't react to what you do, you're wondering at that point, why would I go into car mode when I can just use my better neutral tools, like standard mode tools? That being said, again, boost, amazing statistically. Only 1 meter for all of these great, amazing benefits, but it's held back by being in such a garbage mode, a garbage stance. If it was in just like you could use this whenever you wanted, it'd probably be like the best move ever, best attacking move that is, in terms of yes, attacking potential. Which is why I think it goes at the top of A tier. It's just statistically, it is too hard to ignore how good that move is. But I can't put it in S tier because yes, you would always want to use the move, always, always, always. The only thing that can really punish it is parrying it. But you have to be in car mode to use it. And car mode is just not worth it. Like this is the only reason you'd want to be in car mode, which is pretty impressive that it makes that this makes you want to be in car mode because it's so good. But it's not good enough. It's not good enough to redeem car mode as a whole. Kick. Kick is a very, very useful move of Robot's Kit. It has a ton of hit stun. It is super useful in combos. It is not useless in neutral, although it's not super great in neutral. It is Robot's only -1 peroration move, which means if you start a combo with it, it'll do more damage. Watch my combo guide for more information on that. Um, and for all those reasons, it's super useful. Problems start running into the problems again though. How often are you really going to be hitting this move in neutral to get that extra damage bonus, right? And yes, you're going to be this is the one of the two aerial moves that you are going to be using in a robot combo. But again, neutral's more important. Neutral, yes, that's more important. And when you look at what's currently in A tier, those are all moves that are good in neutral. All moves that will help you get to an advantage state. Kick is good, but it's good in a state where you're already in advantage. And that's a combo. So it's hard to judge it, I think, higher than B because of that. It's not useless. It's not useless in neutral. It's just 11 frames is a slow move. 11 frames is a slow move, and even with initiative with 9 frames, it's still a fairly slow move. It's pretty big range, but if you're hitting it from the air, you can't combo. If you're hitting it from the ground, it can. You might as well. You'll have a ton of other options on the ground where it's like other moves can do it better. Like if here's the thing: if you're in close range, you're never using this move. If you're in the air, you are going to be using this move. If you're in a combo, you are going to be using this move, even if you're on the ground. But at the same time, neutral's more important. I think neutral's more important. I'm going to put it top of B tier. Where this move definitely has a niche, right? Has a niche in combos, and has a niche in uh, neutral. It has some niche in neutral. It has much more of a niche in combos, but it isn't. It isn't that good. It isn't. It isn't. It is good, obviously. Kick is good. Kick user, I should say. Kick user is good, but not A tier good. Burst. This is specifically burst, not burst cancel. I think I burst canceled down here somewhere. Yep, right there. Burst, it's oh man, burst is definitely the hardest move to judge because it does something that no other move does, where it is completely unpunishable, but it basically just gets you out of pressure. And obviously, it's the best move that does that. And you can use it in neutral now, which if you're a character who has resources gained on hit, you can get resources from that, like Robot gains armor, Mutant gains a pip back. Um, that's that's good. That's good. Definitely, that's good. Oh man, this is super hard to rate. Oh, I think I have to put it in B tier because it's like the problem with burst is you have to view it essentially as a resource intensive option where you get one burst every what like 700 frames or something. You don't get burst often. Your burst is it's probably one of the most resource limited options in the game. Where like I said earlier, you get like 4 bursts a game. Maybe 5 or 6 if you're lucky. And because of that, yes, this is a really good move. If you were just able to use this all the time, it'd just be an instant either block or you get off me. It's the best get off me option in the game because it is only punishable by one move that shares block time with nothing else. By the way, you if you're blocking frame two, you are blocking for burst. And it's a defensive tool which ranks lower. It is a highly resource intensive tool which ranks lower, but it's probably the best get off me option in the game. I think because of that, it has to go in B tier. The question is where in B tier. I'm thinking right in the middle, honestly, because what if these options get you a lot of damage? They can at least. Um, Boot gets you a lot of damage. Caustic can if you're smart about it, but not really. And then like this, Magma Bolt's not super. It's not as good as Burst. I wouldn't say it's good as Burst. And then Vertical Slash not as good as Burst. Just like these effects aren't good enough to match Burst, even with all the downsides that Burst has. And I would say their cost is limited enough for their effects to be more positive than Burst. Volt, that is spoiler. It's gonna be lower because Volt not super useful. Again, in mutant combos, you have like you have a very few handful of moves that you want to be using because it's especially easy to drop at high DI modifiers. And Volt is not one of those moves. Volt is better than Envenom because it has no cost associated with it, and you can use it for free at low DI modifiers. Um, Probably better than this because it actually does have some niche in combos. You can use it early on, I guess. Where this, like, you just use like horizontal slash, bro, or just use vertical slash, which is way better. Gives you like 30 frames to hit stun. I'm just gonna leave Volt there, and we'll call it as it is. Because these, if I were to describe it, it's like Cowboy's version of these moves right here, the triple combos. Not really, but the point is they're somewhat usable in combos, I guess, but you don't really want to be using them essentially. This is not good. It's not good. Caltrops, that is a. It's going to D or C. I'll say that. The big problem with Caltrops is again cost of entry. Cost of entry. Remember that. 3 meter is a lot of meter. That is 3 teleports. That's a Loic and a half. That's a kill process. That's 3 caustic barrages. That's a rebirth. That's uh, that's 2 stores and 1 release of a boost. Maybe even 3 stores and 1 release of a boost if you run out of meter. And all those things are way more valuable than a Caltrops, which are, as I might add, very punishable, surprisingly. Surprisingly punishable. Or, like, if you just wait and they throw it out, you have, what, 11 frames to act? That is a ton. And 11 frames is enough for a kick without initiative. That's a huge amount, so you can't use it up close. Even in mid-range, it's kind of risky to use. It can be parried until they hit the ground. Even once they hit the ground, they're not super oppressive. All for 3 meter. And then what niche do you need them to fill? You know, like a kunai or a down summon can do what they do to a more limited capacity for a lot less, basically free. And I just don't see how Caltrops make up for that weakness. The question is it worse than 1,000 cuts? I'd say probably yes. Is it D tier bad where you never want to use these? Bad, and that's a good glue. And if you're not bad, you can just spend it on boost, and boost is way scarier, even though it is pretty expensive to keep up, than Caltrops. So if you were to compare, even if you compare a 3 cost boost to a Caltrops, I'd probably rather have the boost, which is why I think it's worse. And why I think it probably doesn't have a niche. That being said, every move technically has a niche because every move is usable. And you got to consider Fatal Cut is a move that is a 3 meter cost and is 1 use. Caltrops, you essentially get 3 of them. So, yeah, I think it's probably better than that. Now, of course, remember this is always down here because why would you ever use that over Corkscrew? It's coming up right there. Um, Zephyr. 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 Zephyr is a big move. Zephyr is big. And it has 2 hitboxes. Let me explain how Zephyr works, I guess. One that's a true grab and one that's basically a fake grab. And if you space it correctly, you can get into the true grab area and threaten that. Problem is, if you hit it, what does it achieve? You get either really bad Wizard Oki, so you either get really bad Wizard Wake Up pressure, and you get close, which is like not somewhere you want to be. What was I saying? Oh yeah, you either get really bad Wizard Wake Up pressure, and some damage, by the way, or like you get parried and your whole life sucks. I guess you can get a little bit of space sometimes, but it's like, yes, there is, it's big, but that's kind of all it has going for it. It doesn't get you basically anything on correct DI. Um, and it's can be parried, which is like, man, it sucks because like it's not risk free either, is what I'm saying. It has risk and it doesn't have any reward. That's the problem. That being said, it can be used to adjust projectiles slightly, and it does get you some damage, which in some situations it can just be unpunishable if you only hit with the true grab hitbox. And in that situation, it can be threatening, but and especially in combos, it doesn't have any value, even as a combo ender. I'd say it's probably worse than Envenom. And it's only better than Thousand Cuts because it has no cost to entry. Remember, that's a big thing. Chainsaw. Chainsaw is very, 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 very good. Probably not that good. That's probably a bit exaggeration for my chainsaw addiction. Chainsaw is flexible. That is the key part of it. It is flexible in combos. It's another move that has very little utility outside of combos. Thunderclap, which is coming up, has basically all the utility that this move has and more. You don't value the chip damage as much as other characters do as a robot. Uh, not super, not super impressed by its neutral capabilities. In combos, however, it is the best tool for regrounding your opponent, which is very important for robot combos and very important for robot damage. It is also very good generally in robot combos for dealing damage and extending the combo. Because of all that, it's kind of like backslash in a way where it is very specialized in that combo area, but the other areas just aren't good. I think I have to put it top of B tier because, and here's something that comes up. In combos, yes, chainsaw is a very good option. It's flexible, and sometimes what you need to be is flexible, but there are also other options that, while less flexible, are more powerful. And if you want to squeeze out extra damage, if you want to get better setups, sometimes what you need is the uh, more flexible or the less flexible option. However, I think its utility, yeah, I would say its utility option is actually better than the raw like damage option in extender. Because if you think about it, if we think about it in terms of combos, I think chainsaw is a better extender than kick. Even though kick has more hit stun, and I would say they're used about equally, but I like chainsaw more, so I'm gonna rank it higher. That's my perspective. And again, the thing is about backslash and the chainsaw difference, why this is in an A tier, is because this is only useful in combos. Combos are less important. Not repeating that again. Super dash. Put that on the bottom. Because you have to go through each character's super dash, and they're different. Most of them are different. Chuck jump. Let's see, chuck jump. Chuck jump is good as a combo tool. Very good. If it's good on the ground, but you're only really going to be needing it on the ground. Very easy to keep your opponent on the ground as Ninja in combos. It's a huge damage dealer. It does a lot of damage. It is very hard to drop with. It is kind of like Kick in a way. Kick drops more, but also gives you more time to fiddle around or whatever. Um, yeah, I say they're about equal. Probably Chuck Jump's I would probably rank Chuck Jump lower because it is less flexible, where you have to get into that stance to begin with, which isn't hard, especially in combos, but it is an extra step that you need to go through to use it. It's pretty simple. Sneak attack, it is pretty much useless. I will say it is above horizontal acid slash. Sneak attack is almost completely outclassed by overhead claw. There are two things it does better. It There are two things it does better. It can be used in the air, and uh, there are some very rare cases where you can make it hit a frame later. I don't even know how that happens. It seems too complex for my brain. Uh, I'll just discount that because it basically never happens. Hitting in the air, though, isn't as valuable as you would think. Air-to-air combat in Yomi Hustle is super rare. It's non-existent, and you'd rather just be using like grab or getting more block advantage while you go to the ground. Because when you're in the air, the whole dilemma is my opponent gonna grab or use the move that beats grab? That's like you're playing rock paper scissors, but you only have two uh, options, both of you. So it's the air options. The Your attack options in the air are not as valuable by a long shot. So it goes low. Plus, you'd just rather because on the ground you'd rather just use overhead if you're gonna guard break, or you'd rather use envenom if you're gonna you know try to go for that hard of a prediction. And it's like it's slow enough where it doesn't even sometimes it can lose or not lose, but not beat options where your opponent does something like an earthquake, which moves them forward, or a horizontal slash that moves them forward, and then you just whiff. And it's like, okay, well, that sucked. Chuck spin, very good. I also know this move is very good in ninja combos. One of the combo glues, I would say. It also allows you to transition into chuck jump, which is good. Again, it's a fairly quick attack. Um, and usually use it as a mix-up between that and kick when you're in the air. And it's not bad at that as an option in there, but useless in close range air RPS, which again is fake. Um, can't use it on the ground. It's an air only move. I'd say it's probably worse. It's probably better than burst because you can use it way more often and it's actually useful in combos. Worse than caustic barrage, just because caustic barrage has its uses in neutral, even if those uses aren't great. Because if you didn't have chuck spin, you could supplement it with a bunch of other moves, like jump kick or whatever. But if you didn't have caustic barrage, your anti-air game would be a lot weaker. Thunderclap. Um, Probably, I would say, worse than concussive, and that's where I'd put it. Now, the reason for this is because it fills a niche that no other robot move does. It doesn't do it well, but it fills that niche, and that niche is super, super important for robot to have. It beats grab, sometimes. If you're at zero block advantage, if you're at zero block disadvantage, it beats grab, which is really, really, really important to have. An option that beats grab is it's great. Now, command grab does the same thing, but command grab is riskier because it can't be free cancel. It loses the jump. Command grab is bad. We'll get to that later. But this can also be used in the air. And yes, if you auto it, it will still beat grab. It doesn't always beat grab if your opponent has upward momentum, but air to air RPS is fake anyways. But that niche is super important. The problem is, while I did emphasize the strength of that niche, it doesn't do it well at all. A ton of other characters have their options that are the equivalent of this, like dropkick, but can do it with negative block advantage. If you get -1, this immediately loses to grab. In which case, like, you wonder why you're having this move at all. And the block advantage is good, yes, but it's not like it's a slow move. It's like one of the slowest moves in the game. So you're gonna be losing other slow moves, and it's like, But that niche again, the niche is super important. That's why it's that high. Clutch. Ooh, clutch. It's a car move. Means it gets downgraded a bunch. I honestly kind of want to put it at the bottom of C. Clutch. Ooh, C for clutch. Um, as opposed to what this move's name is, this move is not clutch. It never comes in clutch. It is awful. Because let's imagine a scenario where you're in car mode, right? And your opponent is right in front of you. There's no block advantage or disadvantage on either side. This is just raw neutral. And you're trying to win, okay? So you could use clutch, right? And from your opponent's perspective, they can see that. If they block, um, everything else will, at best, okay. Your opponent can block in this scenario, which will lose to clutch. However, at worst, if you don't clutch, they go -3, which is bad, but it's not losing. It's not taking a combo, which would be the actual worst case scenario, which could happen if they attack and you say boost, for example. And if they get hit by if they're blocking, um, they have no reason to not DI for your clutch, since that's the only move that can hit them. And for all characters, for all characters except Robot, which means in the Ditto, um, clutch does not combo. It does not even lead to the wake up pressure you get from exiting hit stun. You get nothing off of it. You get damage and that's it. This move is really, really bad, and it's not even fast either. It's frame 5, which means it loses to jabs. It beats grabs normally, yes, but that's hardly an upside when you get nothing from it. It's like Zephyr, except you're risking so much more to do it. Which I think it has to go below Zephyr. The question is, does it go below 1,000 cuts? And I would say yes, because you got to think 1,000 cuts has that cost of entry of 3 meter, but car mode is the cost of entry for clutch. And getting in car mode isn't exactly free if you want to get in clutch range. And car mode isn't even good otherwise, so it's not like it's a benefit. You have to hurt yourself so many times to use a move that hurts you, that is bad. That being said, I can't honestly put it in D tier. Because it does do something that no other car move does. Again, you wouldn't want to be in car mode like ever, but it does do that thing. But with Caltrops, I can see you going a whole game without ever wanting to click Caltrops or have Caltrops as an option. Same with Horizontal Ashes Slash and Sneak Attack and the other Fatal Cut. But with Clutch, I can see a few scenarios where, like, I would want Clutch. Yes, I want Clutch so I have an option to beat block. So my opponent can't just do that for free. So that's why I'm not going to put it in D tier. I'll leave it at C tier. Combustion. Combustion is a good combo tool, first of all. It's a guard break. One of Wizard's air guard breaks. The problem with air to ground guard breaks though, is if you have only one of them, they're really bad because your opponent can just block and you can't do anything about it. You can't break that block, which is why air to ground guard breaks are pretty bad if you only have one. That makes it less valuable, but it still is a guard break technically. Technically, it is good in combos, that's for sure. It's not really good in neutral. There are other options like you'd rather use Icicle pretty much all the time, uh, or like Conjure Weapon if you really want the block advantage, or Flame Wave if you want to start block strings. It's if you're going for a risky option, Combustion is not it. But combo, it is good in combos. I can't lie. It's not kick good, because kick is like it's not truck jump good. I'd say leave it right there, bottom of B. That is a niche that it has, and when you think about Wizard's kit with high hit stun moves in the air, they are kind of lacking. Now, you could supplement that with other stuff. I don't know. I feel like it kind of has to go higher. Oh man, this is tough. I don't think it goes above Burst. The question is, does it go above Magma Bolt? I think it does. I think it's. I think the fact that without it, Wizard combos would be so much worse, especially in the air, does signal to me like yes, Wizard's kit does want it, which I could see Wizard saying, "Yeah, I don't need Magma Bolt." Confusing touch. Bad move most of the time. You don't really gain a ton from it, is the problem. There's it's hard for me to see a situation where you'd click this move when you wouldn't click grab, for example. Because this move doesn't lose to jump, but it also loses to grab. And I think losing to grab is way worse than um, losing to jump, because people are much more likely to click grab in close range than jump. I think it's honestly worse than all these. Worse than Venom? And another thing with this is you get no reward from this. You get some space, but like you're spending a free cancel to do it, and Wizard doesn't want to be willy nilly with free cancels because you'd rather save that meter for orb and stuff. Yeah, I'm probably gonna put it worse than Zephyr. Worse than Thousand Cuts? No, because it costs a free cancel, but it's free, free. Counter weapon, good. It is the same type of thing as Thunderclap. The thing it provides is less useful, the projectile immunity, but oh no, it doesn't get projectile immunity. It gets full on armor. Yeah, okay, well that's way better. Um, it does the same thing as this does though, where it's like a slow move that gets you a lot of block advantage, and Wizard can use that to really like pop off. And the projectile immunity, I'm not projectile immunity. I keep full on armor is really good. There are a lot of situations where this move is oppressively powerful. But you do need to be in a range that um, Wizard doesn't really like to use it. It is air usable as well. That's an important thing to mention. So you can mix this up with the +3 block advantage or uh, combustion, which is pretty good mix up. But they're both pretty slow. But then you got icicle to patch up that. And I can see a universe where again I can see another universe where Wizard misses having this option because when you think of other +3 block advantage moves, what does Wizard have? This is kind of his only one, like his only good one at least, and it has the additional benefit of having armor on it as well. Yeah, that's pretty good. Mm. It can also be used in combos against the wall to splat the opponent. I mean, maybe you want to do that. I mean, that's not. I've seen it done before. It's not like it doesn't happen. It's pretty good. I'd say it's probably better than these. I think backslash has too much strength in its anti-air capabilities. Where when I think about conjure weapon, it doesn't have that immediate strength that backslash does. But its utility is higher than back sways and concussive for that matter. So I think it goes there. I think that's a fair spot. Conjure Storm, it's a good combo tool on the ground sometimes, but it can also drop. Well, it's definitely below kick because from my perspective is like kick from my perspective is like the big hit stun combo move. And if your big hit stun combo move can't be used in the air, that's definitely a downgrade. Especially because like kick's that's basically kick's only purpose, but kick has a little bit on the side. There's a little bit of sauce. And then jump chuck is like that, but without the sauce. That's like its only use. Um, and then conjure storm is like it doesn't even have all the sauce. You got half the sauce in there, maybe a little bit more than half, but like that's not good enough, you know. There's also a lot of situations where you can just short hop combustion, and it's like just as good. Yeah, I think short hop combustion does almost what it does just as well. It is technically a grounded guard break, and it is technically like better for keeping your opponent grounded. And it's like, oh, I think it has to be C tier. I think C tier is more fair. Better than swipe. I think it goes. Okay, I think it probably goes somewhere around these ones. Probably better than them, I'd say. Because Cowboy has a lot of other options for air stuff, where Wizard doesn't have a ton of other stuff for ground stuff, except for combustion and like conjure weapon. And it's like, I think it's probably worse than swipe. Corkscrew. Let's do corkscrew. Corkscrew, I think is good. I don't think it's amazing. I don't think it's amazing. I think the problem with corkscrew is if it was 10 frames, it'd be really, really good. And that's why it's 11 frames, because obviously it would be way too good if it was 10 frames. Because then it could punish just like waiting around. The thing is, it can't punish waiting around, but it can punish pretty much everything else. Especially with juke, it can be angled in like any way to punish your opponent doing something, which incentivizes your opponent to do nothing, which all your other moves capitalize on. It's a pretty important part of his kit. It could also go pretty far. It punishes slow moves like hustling from far away and like super dashing and stuff, which is good. It's useful in block strings. Again, it's just a better version of H acid slash. I think all those things. The thing is, it's not great like the move in A tier is. It's not flexible in the way that actually maybe it's more flexible. I think it's more flexible because you got to think. Yes, you can like angle and stuff, but there are sometimes where you just have to use juke. It doesn't have the redirection potential that chainsaw has, but it also has a higher range than chainsaw, and it's actually the same amount of time. I think it has to go beside chainsaw probably. Top? I think also when you think about okay, because I think these moves are pretty much equals in terms of like potency, and I don't think they're particularly unique in or particularly suited against any other character's kit. But when you think about what their own characters need, I think Corkscrew comes out on top. Or I think Mutant needs Corkscrew more than Robot needs Chainsaw. Yeah, I would say that. Bounce check. Eh. I have a love-hate relationship with bounce check. Bounce check is a I feel like bounce check is super overshadowed by concussive blast. Where yes, it guard breaks, but that guard break gets you into a wake up. Your opponent waking up and you getting pressure there, which is good, obviously, but it's like if you want a riskier version of bounce check, you could just command grab. Uh, if you want a less risky version, you could just concussive blast or grab or uh, no, I guess grab would be more risky. There's a lot of other options you can do where bounce check to me bounce check never feels like the right option. It does do something kind of unique that other moves don't do though, where it does no, I guess even then. I guess okay, the thing about bounce check it is completely carried by its utility in the air, which is as I said earlier, much less valuable, but it still does exist as utility. Because it can travel a long distance and catch opponents by surprise. But I don't know how valuable that is. And you need momentum to do that. That's my big problem with it. Like in the air, if you have no momentum, it could be hard to use this. And if your momentum isn't right, it can also be hard to use it. And if you're on the ground, it's like, why would you use it? But at the same time, the thing it gets you is pretty valuable. Like, I think hitting a bounce check is more valuable than hitting any of these moves down here. Because some of these moves are only going to be hitting combos, like the TC3s, the vaults, ankle cutters. Um, but it's more of it, because bounce check gets you more than any of those moves. But it also has to be hit in neutral, unlike many of those moves. But it's also less risky than things like Clutch or Envenom or Zephyr or Thousand Cuts, which you also lose your Thousand Cuts on being hit, by the way. I think it's going top of C tier. I think that's fair. Yo, what up? This is me from the future editing me here, and Yeah, I just muted myself for like an hour during half of this recording, so I'm gonna go through and gonna quickly commentate on each of these. It's not gonna be as detailed as I originally went into them, but it'll have to do because Crash. Crash is okay move. I put it into B tier, I think, because it's just an okay move. It's good up close, like I guess. Down. We got Get Up. I'll rate that later because it's a very hard move to rate. I'm just having a hard time deliberating it there. Next, I rate Roll. Roll is also an okay move. A lot of the moves are okay, unsurprisingly. Roll is unique in that it is one of the few like defensive options that you can use. Um, but the problem with roll is it doesn't get you much, and you have to like throw away what advantage you have to use it. And it's not good at all when you're in disadvantage. If you have -1, -2, it's basically a dead move. So you can only use it when you're in advantage, but it loses you that advantage for sometimes distance and a lot. Next we got jump. Jump used to be a lot better back in the day when it was the premier movement option because it was one of the few ways to not completely blow yourself up but also avoid your enemy's attacks. Nowadays the price of jumping is a lot higher, but it's still a good move because it does allow you to avoid all of those nasty moves for very little cost. now there is a cost, and moving in the air still can be expensive, especially depending on your character. But for something that is essentially risk-free, hey, it being resourced it doesn't matter as much. It's a good move in a lot of scenarios. Dash attack is an okay move, like many other moves. It's a projectile immunity on a character that kind of likes to have that. Mutant doesn't want to block pretty much ever, because blocking makes you unable to juke, and that really, really hampers your offensive potential. So, having a move that goes through that and is relatively fast and is generally a good way to call out said projectiles is very, very good. However, it's only good if your opponent is throwing out projectiles and you're calling it out, in which case, yeah, that's a good niche to have. But in close range, a low swipe, up swipe, corkscrew, you got a lot of other better moves that you're probably going to be using there. Next, we have Shutdown. Shutdown is one of the worst moves in the game. You should have saw it earlier. I was going on a whole tirade before I muted myself. But Shutdown costs you 13 frames to do, and you get nothing from it. The only possible benefit that you get from it is that your Loic charges up 13 frames sooner, which is like it okay, that's I guess that's kind of a benefit. You don't get any of the meter back. Most of the time you're going to be wanting that Loic out anyways, even just to put flames on the floor in case your opponent decides to go over there. Like there is no scenario in which shutdown benefits you really. And even if it does benefit you somehow, it's so incredibly minor. So it's hard for me to rate it highly. And then after that we have Try Catch. Try Catch, it's not that good. It's when you compare it to other anti-airs, especially like when you look at backslash, for example, it's just a worse backslash. Yes, it pulls the opponent. Dive kick. Dive kick is a bad move. It's not useful in combos. You have other alternatives like kick or nunchuck or just a whole bunch of other options that are very, very adequate and better, really. And in neutral, like yes, the +3 is good, but it's really hard to get off, and it doesn't do a lot that other moves don't do. Now, yes, that +3 is nice, and there are some scenarios where only it hits, but it's just the cost of getting it off, the difficulty of getting it off, I think it makes it not good enough and gives it a low C tier rating. Next, we have Downward Cleave. Downward Cleave is just a better Thunderclap, and Thunderclap is good because it allows you to avoid grabs. Now, Downward Cleave does that better, even though it has less block advantage because it does not lose at -1 automatically, which Thunderclap does do, and which is a huge downside for Thunderclap. So yeah, it's basically better. It's also better in combos. debatably. It's better in the air combos especially, but I would say Thunderclap is maybe better on the ground. Drift. Drift is another one of those car mode moves that is bad because you have to be in car mode to use it. Statistically, drift is an okay move. Like most of the time it's +3, but you have to be in car mode to use it. The projectile immunity doesn't really come up. There's very few moves in car mode, so it's not unlikely that it's gonna be parried despite being a low, funnily enough. So it's bad. It's kind of like those mid-tier moves like ankle cutter. Next, we have just Raw Drive. Raw Drive is like, despite car mode being a bad move, I don't think Raw Drive is just a bad on its own. If car mode was a good option, Drive would still be like okay. Like it's an okay. It's probably one of the best ways to get into Drive. It's probably Propel Drive and then uh, the Drive button to get into car mode because it just takes like it's not slow or anything, and it's like you don't want to be doing it close up, obviously, but you don't really want to be in car mode to begin with. If car mode was a good tool, like I said earlier, then it could probably be bumped up to like the bottom of B. But obviously, it's worse than just getting into car mode for free whenever you want. But it's not exactly I have to back sway first to get into the stance, or I have to do some weird funky shenanigans to get in there. Next we have flip. Flip is actually, or sorry, it's not flip anymore. It's called jump start because they changed that because they didn't want it to overlap with the toggle flip. Flip is actually a good move. It's probably one of the best car moves. It used to be a lot better, obviously, but it's pretty decent. The fact that it avoids grabs makes it kind of the same as Thunderclap or Downward Cleave, and those moves are obviously an A tier. Problem is, again, you have to be in car mode to use them, which isn't great. Yeah. Next we have jump kick. Jump kick is just much like how downward cleave is just better thunderclap. Dropkick is just better downward cleave. Like yes, it's less useful in combos, but it's so much more useful in neutral, where the guard breaking is great. It can win sometimes even at like -2. I think maybe even -3, but I don't. Maybe depending on the scenario, right? And that's crazy. It can completely turn around losing situations on its own, and it's good. Still, it's only really useful in those close range encounters. It isn't super great in combos like Concussive Blast is. It isn't useful in one specific scenario and kind of good in other scenarios like backslashes. And it doesn't have like the sheer versatility that things like Jump do. So it's still an A tier, but probably a low A tier. It's probably the peak of grab beating moves. Next we have Optical, and Optical is almost just better um, Tri-Catch. Tri-Catch is obviously bad in combos. Optical is good in combos when you're on the ground. It's really bad in the air now because 20 frames is not nearly enough for the angle it sends at. But in neutral, it's +3. It's more than Tri-Catch. It doesn't exactly send at a bad angle if it's blocked, and it's good. Now, it's debatable like how often you want to be using that move to begin with, because if your opponent is in a situation where optical beam can hit, it can often be like not good for you. You know what I mean? Like downward cleave beats it at a pretty big range. So and other moves do the same thing, where it's like where if optical beam is like in the perfect range, like yeah, it's good, but it's on the same kind of level of magma bolt, where it's like, what are the situations where you really want to be using this? Flame Wave. Flame Wave is one of the best projectiles in the game. Probably the best, just unresourced projectile. And that's because of the amount of space it denies and its unparability. It's also super good in block strings, obviously useless in combos, but it's just good for denying your opponent, forcing your opponent to jump to get out of the way, which allows you to set up even more projectiles and build more advantage, and it's just generally good. Foresight is very, very good. I would almost say it's S tier if it did all of the stuff that it could do on its own. It can bounce bullets. It can teleport bullets. It can teleport you. It can allow you to use ground moves in the air. It can allow you to use air moves on the ground. It can do like everything. It's super, super great, but it doesn't do it on its own. It needs a bunch of other stuff to support it. It needs meter. It needs bullet out. It's very good, but not quite the killer move that it would be without all that other stuff. Flamethrower is it's probably the best combo move of all time. The fact that it does unscaled damage for just waiting there, and it's not a bad move in its own right. Like it gives you like 23 hit stun. That's a pretty good amount. 10 isn't hard to get off in combos either. In the corner, it's killer. It easily takes 4K combos to 6K combos, and that's a huge deal. That slight difference is not so slight once you get down into the details. It's probably the best combo move in the game, but I think A tier is where it has to cap off. I don't think it can go above A tier. And I think that's where all moves that are exclusively useful in combos have to die. Next we have Geyser, where while Flamethrower is the best combo move, I believe that Geyser is the best anti-setup tool in the game. And that would probably put it in S tier alone if it wasn't resourced. It is pretty heavily resourced, but honestly, that resource, even though it's not easy to get, the anti-setup potential of this move is just so incredible. And that makes it a good move. The setup is very, very powerful in this game, and that chip damage isn't something to scoff at. Grab. Grab is obviously an S tier move. It is completely meta warping. A character without grab would be the worst character in the game. I don't know how you would play without grab because it is so essential. Moves that beat grab are ranked higher purely because the grab is so powerful. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it it is it has to rank highly because of how it is meta defining like that. Command grab. Command grab is just worse thunderclap. It's hard to imagine that you would click it, except for in a few scenarios. It's probably a better combo ender. It does do more damage. And yes, like it does beat block in a way that Thunderclap doesn't, but all those things aren't super valuable. Yes, they are a niche, but they're just kind of like okay. Kill Process is a very hard move to rank because at level 3, it's probably an A tier move. It's very good. At level 9, it's probably an A tier move. It's very risky, but obviously if you hit it, you just win. Very good move. However, most of the time you're going to be having it with like 6 meter, with like 5 meter, and to waste all that on something that's not a ton more damage than 3, but spends a lot more meter, especially if you miss, you got to consider like if you miss KP, you're essentially disabled from using supers for like the next 700 frames until you can get at least one more meter to like build up your stuff, and that's even dependent on if like you're playing aggressively and stuff with no meter, which is hard to do. And I think that eventually balances it out because that's definitely like a low C, like level 5 and like level 6, level 7 KP are like a C tier move, but level 3 and 9 are like A tier moves. So I think it balances out to go somewhere in the middle, probably around B tier. Gust is a very, very, very good move. It is an essential part of Wizard's kit. But much like Foresight, it can't do stuff on its own. The ability to redirect projectiles is, much like Foresight, a very like risk-free option. Like when you blow up Foresight, boom, like what is your opponent going to react to that? There's no way to punish that, especially if you move in certain ways. And with Gust, it's the same thing. You can Gust to completely cover every single one of your options. However, it isn't able to do that on its own, and Gust has that much more severely than Foresight does, where Gust without any projectiles on field is completely dead, and it's also more character matchup dependent. Where like against a robot, it's a lot less useful than versus the Wizard Ditto. So it goes probably high A tier, I'd say. Next we have Holster and Gun Draw. Holster is one of those moves that is just like if you mess up, you have it, and yeah, it's nice to have, but you kind of have to mess up to really want to use it in the first place. Like, why would you ever want to use it over just temporaling or shooting or setting up your foresight or gaining advantage in other ways? But it's not necessarily a bad move to have. And gun draw is okay in the sense that you want to have it to get to your better stance. You want to get into gun stance because gun stance is really good. The move itself isn't that great, but the state that it puts you in is super super good. And I think they're both around B tier essentially. Horizontal slash is probably the best 6-framer in the game. It can be angled, it goes super far. Technically an 8-framer if you hit with the end of it, but that rarely ever comes into play. The 2-frame difference. It moves you forward a bit. It's a very good neutral. It's the fact that it's just so huge and relatively quick means it beats out like every other 6-framer, which is super super advantageous. It's not awful in combos either. Like you don't want to be starting with it or really using it for damage, but if you screw up, it can help you get your combo back, and that's pretty good. Still, it doesn't do anything like exceptionally well, so I think it has to cap out at B tier. We have grappling hook next. Grappling hook. Grappling hook, I think, is probably a low A tier move. Grappling hook with proper setup, which is the key drawback of this move, is just incredible. It is something that can either allow you to use moves completely safely if you get it behind you, or make your opponent have to play 50-50s every single turn if you pull it towards them, which you're going to be pulling towards them a lot more often. And that's just, it's an incredible ability that one move can give you. Again, the main problem though is you have to set it up correctly. It's a lot more useful in combos because it is easier to set up that way. And the combo thing is something I haven't touched on because it is also very good in combos. You can use it with jump kick to do loops, or you can just use it on the ground with nunchuck to pull your opponent to the corner or force the DI into you, and that's also pretty good. Again, that setup, setup, setup though, where it's all that stuff is great if you can get it set up correctly. There are ways for your opponent to just play around it. If they go in, then well, what are you gonna do? Like your grappling hook isn't gonna help at close range. And if they go far away, it's like, well, yeah, you can pull yourself closer, but not closer enough to threaten them. And it's kind of only useful in this specific range. But it is useful in that specific range very, very much. And it also depends a lot with momentum and stuff, but because of all that, I think it goes bottom of A tier. Next we have Howl. Howl is much like Holster in that it is a move for if you mess up. And it's like, yeah, you'd like to have it. Like, you'd rather have Howl than not have it, but if you're playing perfectly, you'll never need to use Howl. So, bottom of B tier, top of C tier move. Icicle. Icicle is a okay combo move. It redirects your opponent pretty nicely. It's kind of okay in neutral. It's much like Chuck Spin where it's almost I feel like it's almost exactly the same power level as Chuck Spin because it's relatively fast. It's okay in combos. It's like it's kind of a mixed bag. It's nothing super great at, but I wouldn't say there's like something it isn't terrible at. It also helps you get your it's probably one of the best way to get orb swords up. So, that's kind of a plus. And I guess that's I put it over Chuck Spin because of that. Impale. Impale is a top of B tier move. It is like a the power that it has to call out setup is very powerful in the same way that Geyser is, but it doesn't do it as well. Obviously, the risk is so much higher. But it makes your opponent think, oh, do I want to hustle here? Oh, do I want to howl here? Do I want to set up projectiles? And that ability is very powerful. The problem is it's very, very risky. And that risk does actually contribute to it not being super great. But the niche it has is definitely there, and it is definitely potent, and it definitely comes up in games. So, because of that, high B tier. Next we have instant cancels. Instant cancels, much like Howl, much like Holster, is that, oh, I messed up and my combos, my neutral, whatever, it wasn't good enough, and now I'm going to spend some meter to fix my mistakes, essentially. Where yes, it's sure, I'll take it, but if you never mess up, you'll never need to use it. The reason I initially rank instant cancel in C tier, I moved them all to C tier, eventually all the mess up moves, spoiler, is because combos are so much harder to mess up than neutral, in my personal opinion, because your opponent has a lot more actions that they can take. They can make your life so much harder. Where with combos, yes, you have to deal with like DI and burst and stuff, but that's like two options compared to like the million your opponent has on their turn when they're actionable. But it's definitely the worst of the I messed up, I need help type tools. Bro, what is this bozo doing? Move on to the next move already. Sheesh. Next we have Izuna Drop, and it is bad. I don't know why you'd ever use it as a combo ender over Impale. The only situation I can see is where you are in the air and you don't have enough time to go to the ground and use impale to get the better wake up pressure. And that is a case, I guess. It does happen. I've seen it happen before. But if you're playing well, it's like I don't see the need to do it ever, really. And it's not even hard to do. Like you all you need is 13 frames and to be on the ground to use it. And it's hard. I can't see. It's hard for me to see why you'd ever use it over impale. So that's why it gets D tier. Jump kick is it's good. It's a anti-setup tool kind of, but it's less powerful than both impale and geyser, and also less costly. It's good in combos though, which is what gives it its high ranking. It's okay in neutral and good in combos, so it gives a somewhat high ranking. Boot is good. It's probably the best, or one of the best, I'd say, aerial neutrals in the game. The problem is, yeah, it's a very good in neutral. It's good in combos as well, but you have to be in the air to use it. And the air is not a place you usually want to be. That means it also suffers a lot from anti-airs, which are specifically designed to beat moves like boot. Despite that, it does command respect when you're in the air above it, and it has a huge range, so it's a pretty high ranking. Next we have Reel. Reel is it's not good. It's the problem with Reel is you have to already use a kind of bad move in Lasso to use it, which is a C tier move, which I have ranked already. And then it's like, eh. But I mean, like, you can think of Reel as like the reward for if you land a C tier move, and the reward itself isn't bad. You get a combo which is good, and it's definitely better than the alternative of using a drop. So that, in some sense, that does have that niche there, and you're probably going to be using it most of the time if you land Lasso, but I can't deny that. But you don't want to be using it. It's not like a move like, oh yes, I want to use. Gun reel is a bad move. It's just you already have to like the lasso argument. You have to already be using gun throw, which is bad. And it's like, yes, it can save you from using the bullet, but like at that point you've already made several mistakes, and reeling the gun back doesn't always reel it back to you, which is annoying. And gun is so powerful, you'd almost always rather have it in hand. Missile form is a bad attack, but it is a good movement option. It can save you a lot of the hover meter. It saves you air options. It does quite a bit. It's like okay. I'll put it right next to Flame Wave and Caustic Barrage. Next we have Jump Slash. Jump Slash is probably the second best anti-air in the game, next to Backslash. Or it's Leap Slash, that's what the move's called. And Leap Slash is only really that powerful because of Juke, I think. Where yes, it is good and it does cover a lot and it's fast. 10 is like just fast enough. If it was 11 frames, it'd be awful. It'd be garbage. You never use it. But because it's 10, you can't just wait in the air and hope not to get hit by it if you're playing as the opponent. At the same time, like without jukes, the area that covers can't be denied to be a lot less, and it also doesn't hit on the ground, which I think is hugely important because the ground is where a lot of the game takes place. Your opponent can just choose to never have to deal with it if they play on the ground the whole time. Still, I mean, anti-air, Mutant needs an anti-air, and Caustic Barrage isn't exactly what Mutant wants. And with Juke, it becomes incredibly oppressive for calling out just passive and offensive options. Still, only an anti-air, unlike Backslash, which can be an anti-air or can be a kind of mid close range option. Next we have Loic. Loic, my goat, used to be goated, but now it's a really, really not that great super. It's not going to harm you in the way where it's like, oh, I'm spending meter on something like I could have used. So it's better than everything like below roll, where it's like that kind of stuff. If you misuse it, it will harm you. Where with Loic, you're probably never going to be harmed by it other than losing the 2 meter you spend up front. But most of the time, it just goes to waste. It's not super great. It doesn't do a lot for you. it's hard to capitalize on the small amount of advantage it does give you. You really have to help it out for it to work, which is not a great move, which makes a move not great. Low swipe is probably the best normal in the game. It low profiles like everything. Dropkick can sometimes just like completely whiff, and it's like, oh yeah, well your dropkick doesn't work. Your move that beats grab doesn't work, and it can beat grabs with juke. It could you could flip it around and beat jabs. You could do so much. You could beat so much with this, and nobody ever blocks low because blocking low is so much less powerful than blocking high. As I will mention later, it's an amazing new normal move. Next we have what do we have next? Next we have the screen freezing. Next we have lightning slice. Lightning slice is an mid move. It's mid. Like it's okay in combos. It's okay for like a backwards movement calling out option. It's like missile form level. I don't know. Mana dart, same. It's kind of like mid. It covers areas that Flame Wave can't, which is nice. But it's also way easier to parry, and it's like it works well with Gust, but Gust is doing the heavy lifting there. Let's say so. It's kind of mid. It's okay. Magnet is only really used for like redirection stall, and that's kind of it. Like you can do some funky things with Magnet technically, but most of the time it isn't worth it. And then you have to also consider you can only use this after you've set up bomb. So if you don't know how to set up bomb correctly, well, you're out of tough luck. Okay. Mana kick is a mid move. It's a mid move. It could set up lightning, I guess, but it's hard to ever see why you use this in any real scenario, unless you have to. I mean, setting up it's okay. It's okay. Setting up lightning is okay, I guess. Next we have launch. Launch is probably the worst move in the game. It costs you a meter, it costs you half your fuel, and is just donating meter to your opponent. This is definitely the worst move in the game. I don't see why you would ever want to use this. It doesn't work in combos. It doesn't work in neutral. It doesn't give you any advantage. It gives your opponent advantage for using it. It gives them a safe area to go to. It's really bad. Nunchuck is it's a move for sure. It's kind of like Chuck Spin or Dash Attack from Mutant, where it's like, yeah, it's decently fast and it covers a decent area, but there are other alternatives to this move. It's not a bad move, and there are cases where you do want to use it, especially in combos. In combos, it's a lot more useful than in neutral, but it's there. It does a whole bunch of stuff decently, nothing great. Okay, now this is gonna be controversial. I think Mana Strike is probably debatably the best six framer in the game. At least a grounded six framer. Because you got to consider it's not just a grounded six framer either. It is something that can be used in the air, and that's super powerful. And the most important thing I think about Mana Strike is that if your opponent is coming at you with momentum and is going to like slide kick, for example, you can cover both with one move, them slide kicking and blocking. Because unlike H slash, it doesn't cover that whole range where like if they block, you can't do anything about it. You have to either guess with H slash whether they're going to block or they're going to attack. With Mana Strike, you can cover both options and be safe. And because of that, it's a much better tool. You can be a lot more precise with it. There are times where it isn't where you'd rather just have the big attack to cover more offensive options, but sometimes there's situations where only one offensive option will work, and in that case you can cover both the offensive option and the defensive option, and that'll put you in a better scenario. So I think it's better overall than H slash, and again it is usable in the air, so that the same kind of arguments also apply in the air, but obviously the air is a much less important factor of the game. And I think this is lastly for the stuff I was muted for. We have Chuck, Heavy Chuck. We have Heavy Chuck. Heavy Chuck allows you to use the laser if you use Nunchuck afterwards. It's decently fast at 6 frames, and it gives you like +3. So I mean, all that stuff's good, but you have to kind of be in Nunchuck stance to use it. It's good on like for wake up pressure, but much like dive kick, it's kind of annoying to have to get off. Like 6 frames is fast, yes, and a lot of times you're going to be getting that off of a +1 from hitting a normal nunchuck. But like 5 frames isn't exactly like lightning speed. It isn't, it is. It's like almost fast enough. If it was 5 frames, it'd probably be amazing. It'd be an amazing move. But it's like it's okay. It's okay. That's probably what I'm gonna say here too. Okay, yep, that's everything. See you, folks. Thanks for tuning in to the editing me, future me. See you never. Chat. Let's ignore the fact that I just muted myself for like an hour there. No. Oh my god, muted. Oh, whatever. I'll go over it in editing. Burst cancel. Burst cancel is good. You can bait out bursts and stuff, which is nice. It can save your combos. It does a lot, but it costs a lot. It does more than burst does, but it also costs the same, which is probably higher. Probably bottom of A tier, honestly. Yeah, because it's just the cost is so high for burst cancel. I think that's the problem with it. Is like obviously if you could do that every turn, you'd be the best move in the game, be an infinite. But you can't do it every turn because it costs a lot. But the effect is so good. The effect is really, really, really good. It's way better than burst's effect. Orb. Orb is good, but it costs a lot. That is the main concern. I don't think it's as good as it used to be, because Wizard has a harder time running away. Wizard is the main character that gets affected by sadness nowadays. Just because it's really easy to just run away with him. There's not like mechanics that prevent him from running away. I think it's better. It's a good neutral tool and it's a good combo tool. But the problem is like both of those cost a lot. This is the actual bottom of A, I think. Like yeah, it's good. It costs a lot. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, it's good. It is good. I don't know if there's much more I can say than that though. Like it's good. And they're probably better. These two are probably better than I think, honestly. No, I can't put burst cancel higher because it just costs so much. I think that I can put this higher though because it costs a lot less. I think I can put it higher than grapple because grapple does require setup, and technically orb does too. But the orb is just a lot easier to set up, but it costs more. Like I said, like I did say, orb tether is garbage. Why would you ever use this move? Makes no sense. It is just a waste of time. Worse than shutdown because you're spending your time doing stuff, but you have orb up, so that means you also have to spend meter while you're doing it. Unlike shutdown, which you've already spent your meter for. Hmm. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Second worst move in the game. Overflow. Yo, remember when everyone was hyping up this move? This move is okay. It's okay. It's good in combos at the beginning, like below 2 times the mod. And specifically 2, it has to be below that. So like 1.8, 1.3, that means you couldn't use one at the beginning of your combo after like a concussive. Again, check out the robot combo video for that one. But at the same time, after that, it's not super useful, which does dissuade me from putting it very highly. Mm, it's good, but is it that good? Better than Crash. How about that? Is it better than Crash? Oh, I don't know. Is it better than no? Because it's so hard to use in neutral because there's no disjoint to the hitbox. You're just so vulnerable while you're doing it. And 7 frames is not like again 7 frames is like teetering on the edge of fast. I'll put it on one of these sides. I don't know if it's better or worse than Chuck Spin though. Honestly, I think it's worse. Chuck Spin just like I know it is better because Chuck Spin just doesn't have the same like utility that Overflow does at the beginning of a combo. Overhead Claw. Mutants essentially only guard break. It's like guard break. I don't know, top of C tier. It's like bad. Like you don't need a guard break as mutant. That's the thing. Like you can grab loop and stuff. That's fine. Or you could stall. I mean, it's better than like car mode, I guess. The mutant does kind of want it because it's a guard break, but Where did I put sneak attack? Oh yeah, and useless. Yeah, it makes sense. Block and low block. Well, block is better than low block. Let's get that out of the way. Because obviously there's more high attacks than low attacks. Blocking is... It's pretty good. What do you know? It is pretty good. What do you know? Grabbing is still stronger than blocking, but blocking is a essential part of the game. It is a part of like the risk management aspect of this game. And so you need to do it to win, really. You don't technically have to, but it can make your life a lot easier. And it also, there's a reason why sadness is so bad, and it isn't because you take more damage, although that is bad. It's because you can't block it, because blocking is so strong. And low block is a lot less strong because there are less low attacks. It does block projectiles and stuff, but you take more um, block disadvantage because you're blocking the wrong direction. Unless the projectile is low, but there's very few of those. Mainly just both shockwaves. Blocking low is still very strong, though. Hmm. I'd say it's probably weaker than jump, though. Jumping is more important than blocking low. Ping is a juiced move. Just going to say that outright. Ping used to be the most limp move of all time. Now it has a limp amount of hits done, but it also is juiced in every other aspect. It is like a worse. It is in between Nunchuck and H slash. Can't be used in the air though, so that does downgrade it a few points. It's not useful in combos either, but it is also Robot's most oppressive 6 frame there. But it also does overlap a lot with Earthquake. It is generally just a better Earthquake because it works from a distance where Earthquake only works up close. So it's probably... It's really important in its neutral. Hmm. It's probably better than these. I think it is basically just a worse H slash, but I think it's close because it has less range but more block advantage on hit. So it's good. It also kind of pulls the opponent in, which is nice. This is point blank. Point blank is just a free +2 if your opponent's up close and you have gun. So I mean, like it's good in that sense, but you don't need it. Is the problem. Like it's not like a bad move statistically, but again, it's that situation of the move statistically on its own isn't bad, but it's like a boost scenario, but like worse. The move isn't bad, but you don't really want to be in the situation where you have to use it because it does cost a bullet, which is not a low price to pay. It's probably worse. Well, the cost of burst is probably higher than the cost of bullet, but also and you do get more reward from this. Point blank on its own, I'd say point blank is it's probably pretty low. Let's put it just above KP. I feel like that makes sense because they both have pretty high costs, although KP can be higher depending on when. And like it's not stuff you want to be like missing. You know what I mean? Not stuff you want to be spending on. Pommel is a jab, and jabs have to be good. Jabs do have to be good, otherwise your character would suffer. The thing about jabs is Pommel is probably the worst jab out of all of them, besides maybe Key Punch, but that's debatable. Jabs are very good because obviously they beat every other attack essentially, except for the rare ones like Boost. That's why that one's so high, and the upcoming Uppercut. So yes, in other words, it has to be because jabs are essential to winning the game. Yeah, try winning a game without a jab, punk. Oh wait, you're playing wizard. Oh no. Um, I don't know how high it should be though, because they're basically completely dead in combos. Like yes, they can technically, depending on your character, bring the combo back to life, but most of the time you shouldn't need them. But they are just that important in neutral. I think all the jabs are going to end up going up there. Pistol Whip, it is kind of sucky. It is okay in combos and okay as a guard break, and that's just about it. You can also use it if you mess up your gun timing to free cancel and, not be dead, not be frame killed. Mm, it's just like so okay. I'll put it below dash attack. Like that. It feels like it doesn't have the utility of dash attack, but it obviously doesn't cost as much as this other stuff. Actually, no, I should put it lower. I'm putting it below optical. It's definitely not as good as optical. Probably around try catch, I think. This makes sense to me. Better than try catch? Yeah, because it's better in combos than try catches. Pounce is good. It's like back sway, but sometimes you get to punish your opponent right away. It also allows you to send your opponents to the ground, so you can set up the evil wake up pressure. It's just better back sway. Don't think it's as good as any of this other stuff up here though. Like Conjure Weapon is really, really good. Because again, it's like backsway, but it has some offensive punch to it. But again, backsway still is a defensive tool, and Pounce as a defensive tool can only do so much, even if it does have a little bit of offense in it. Propel is somewhere along here. Propel used to be better when you actually wanted to be close to your opponent, but now like you can't be in your opponent's face and also have a good time. I'll probably put it above real because you can one frame it and then use it to run away really far. But the problem is now like the spacing you want to be in as robot is I wouldn't say like super precise, but there is a area you want to be in and an area you don't want to be in. And you don't want to be in your opponent's face and you don't want to be out of like earthquake range. You want to be like just in earthquake range, which would be like perfect. Although there is some wiggle room. And Propel can be good for that, but most of the time it isn't. And the fact that it's 13 frames, I think, of interruptible as soon as is not super great. Because that means you can get punished by things like corkscrew or chainsaw. Basically, a lot of the slow attacks, which makes it a lot worse. Key punch. Oh no, this is not key punch. This is normal punch and key punch. I think they'll be rated basically the same. Key punch is a little bit worse. Um, but they both needed about as much. Ninja needs his punch a little bit less, and Robot's punch is a little bit worse. So I think it about balances out, and you could put them in the same spot. And obviously, ninjas can also be used in the air, so that makes it basically bounces out in the end. But punch again is important, no matter whether you're in the ground or in the air. Punch is important, and it is better than pommel. So if you wanted me to rank this key punch and punch, I'd probably go ping, punch, key punch, pommel, or maybe pommel, key punch. They're about the same. Earthquake goes right below ping. They're both pretty good. Earthquake has a little bit more downsides, but can also be used in combo, unlike ping. So the thing about Earthquake is if you're close, that means even if you're +2, stuff like pommel can hit you, which is not good. Or with ping, you can space it correctly so that you don't get hit by that stuff, and that's more convenient. But obviously, you don't want a dead move in combos that is ping. And Earthquake can be a useful flip around until people learn to DI Earthquake correctly. Also, who blocks low? Am I right? I mean, yeah, not yeah. Who would block low? Who blocks low? Push block is bad. It's bad. It's a waste of meter. The only time you use it is like if you're going to get hit by a Loic, which doesn't happen, or you're going to take a lot of chip damage, which if you're playing well shouldn't happen to begin with. So I wonder where it goes. It feels like you're almost actively harming yourself by using it because you're just wasting meter. Because push block is not strong enough, and especially against projectiles, it like just doesn't work. There are situations where it's useful, but like again, you're spending meter to reset yourself to neutral at best, and usually that doesn't even happen. So, but then again, it's like it's blocking. It technically also blocks the correct direction, so it doesn't work against guard breaks either. But it's like the lightest form of hurting yourself. It's not like in Venom or like Zephyr type. Like, oh my god, you're making a huge mistake. But Quick Slash is not what it used to be. Man, Quick Slash, Quick Slash. You gotta consider Quick Slash is essentially a 2 meter move, just like Loic. And it also Quick Slash is a 2 meter move that extends your combo when you mess it up. But obviously, if you're a good player, your combo should never be messed up. So it's hard to ever. It's hard to find a reason like why you would use this if you're not bad at the game. It's probably worse than these guys. And this worse than Lasso. Yeah, it's just like you don't need to use Quick Slash unless you're bad at the game. But like it's not bad to have, It's not like it's a bad. I mean, it is kind of a bad move. It doesn't like no damage. Got an extra hit in your combo. We'll put it. Oh man, we'll put it with Swipe because Swipe is also a bad combo move. Right above it. Is this Rebirth? I don't know. It's just like again with like a Rebirth. We'll put it down here because like this. It's probably slightly better than that. But with Rebirth, you could just like hit your opponent normally and not spend 3 meter on doing a combo that gets you like nothing. You could even end your combo with like a sweep, do a howl, and then get like wake up pressure. It's not gonna be like the best wake up pressure you can get, but you can still get it, and then you saved a meter that you can spend on whatever you want. So it's it's hard for me to. The only reason you'd use it is a finisher, and it's not even like that good a finisher. Plus, it costs 3 meter, which 3 meter is again a lot of investment. Remote bomb. Sorry guys, my computer was broken there. Just started bugging out. It was weird. I think rope bomb. Remote bomb is definitely one of the set plays of all time. That's for sure. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, that seems like a good spot for it. Return, and I should do step first. Get back in there. Step is very, very good. Step is probably one of the best moves in the game. It does so much for you. It creates your wake up pressure for you. It can work as a combo extender. It saves you from ever having to think about letting your opponent airborne during the seventh hit of a combo. It's great. It also has a movement option. The pressure it exerts when you get it off is amazing. You want to get this pressure off every single chance you can get. And even when you're not trying to get the pressure off, using it as a movement option is very good. It doesn't even suffer from the backwards movement penalty that many backward movements do. It only costs 2 extra frames, which can sometimes work to your advantage. It's very good. Not as good as grabbing or blocking, but it is very still one of the best moves in the game, and it has been a top tier move for a long, long time. Return is not as good. Surprisingly, when you don't condense as much ability as you do in step into return, it is not as good. What a shocker. Return is not bad, but the situations you want to use it aren't always relevant. It is one of the movement options for sure. So we'll put it down there. It's basically just like a dash back. So I'll rate that when I get to the other ones. Saw Blade is definitely bad. There's pretty much no situation where you'd want to use Saw Blade over Boot, except when you can't use Boot. And even then, you'd probably want to use something like Grab or something instead, or just admit that you messed up your combo and go to the next game. Um, because Saw Blade is really bad at most combos, and there's almost always an alternative you want to use. That being said, if it is the only option you have to use, it does work sometimes. It's not a move that's gonna break your balls. It exists. It definitely exists as one of the moves of all time. Shockwave is used for stalling and evil setups, and that's about it. It's a surprisingly persistent projectile, which prevents your progress of I can't think of any more P words. It is annoying, is what I'm trying to say. But it is also kind of slow to set up, and Mutant doesn't really need it per se. Like it's not going to do him a lot of favors. It can like protect him, but it doesn't offensively do a lot, like in the way like Caustic Spike or Caustic Barrage does. Not that it's bad, of course, it still does stuff. And I think it honestly does more than like it's still a projectile that's unparryable, and it's still used in that setup. So put it right next to Caustic. Caustic, actually, yeah, because gun is like on its own. You have to get into your setup next turn. Shoot roll. I don't know, man. Why would you ever use shoot roll? It is like the situations you use it in are so few and far between. And if you're ever using it in those situations, you're the one like losing. I've seen situations where a shoot roll would lose to me blocking. Not like outright lose, but I'd be like I get like a +2 like meaty. And that's like okay, your move sucks so I can block your attack and still beat it. So the only situation you'd use it if you're gonna be hit like a by a projector or something, but even then I've never seen it work. It's not good. Shoot, on the other hand, is like the best move in the game. If this does at least shoot out a bullet, but it's also another thing about shoot roll is that it's super hard to capitalize on your bullet afterwards because you've probably let it like bounce once or twice after this. With normal shoot, you shoot, the bullet lands on the ground, hits your opponent, and then next turn you get free reign to do whatever you want. You can do any action you want, including setting up the foresight to bounce it back to your opponent to get another turn of that. So you essentially get free chip. It is incredible aerial denial. It is uncontestable up close. It is uncontestable far away. It is uncontestable basically wherever. Your only hope is to parry it, and in that case, you better hope you get close enough to your opponent where your opponent allows you to do that and then clicks the button that allows you to parry them, and then your opponent allows you to win. It's like your opponent has to allow you to do so much stuff in order for shoot to not be good. And in every other scenario, shoot is just straight up good. The only time where the gun draw and stuff is bad is when you're not able to shoot your opponent, because shoot is so incredibly strong. And it doesn't allow your opponent to play for so many turns. Oh, shoot is so good. It is obviously better than grab. It loses up to grab, funny enough, if you get close. But obviously, if your opponent is playing even mildly well, like you'll never be in the situation where you can use grab on a opponent who can shoot. And there's a reason why Cowboys constantly pull out gun is because shoot is incredibly overpowered. Shred is good. It is better than all of these. It is probably the best aerial normal in the game, simply because you can change it to a 3-frame attack if you're going to the ground. And Juke is also very good. Also, it's multi-hit, so it works well with Mutant's kit, where it allows them to get pips back and stuff. And that's pretty pleasant. Yeah. So it makes your whole body a thing that's hard to hit with like certain moves. Like Boot has no problem hitting a Mutant in his shredding, but like stuff like um, vertical slash or whatever in the air, a bounce check might have a problem with it sometimes. Depends. Shuriken is okay. It's okay. It's it's like the magic dart for ninja. It's slightly better because you can make it. Maybe it's slightly worse because with magic dart it's easier to capitalize on it with like gust and stuff. But obviously, if you stack the shurikens, that's better. But that is pretty hard to set up. So it's probably worse than something like these two, which is easier to get off. But Caustic Barrage costs stuff and Shuriken doesn't, so that's good. You could also use it as a weird combo extender sometimes, although that's pretty uncommon. Skull Shaker is good-ish. You could use it once during a combo, and that's literally all it does. I don't know. I think I might put Skull Shaker as like a C. Like, cause if you think about it, Skull Shaker, what does Skull Shaker really do that like you couldn't already do as Ninja? Like you're to be missing out on like even if you say like 1k damage, like it's like okay, that's because that's all you're be missing out on. If you were missing out on something like Punch, you're immediately like, oh, hold on, Stop. Hold on right there. Give me punch back, please. If I say like I'm taking away Skull Shaker, okay, okay. I mean I could still play without Skull Shaker just fine. I think because of that, Skull Shaker has to be ranked pretty lowly. It's not like the effect is bad and you can still use it. It's kind of like Bounce Check. I think probably worse than Bounce Check. Slash is very good. Big range. It's surprisingly high. It's you can use it once during a combo to go it and then sweep, which can end your combo and then give you some nice wake up pressure. Problem is the hitbox is oddly disjointed, but you do have to be pretty close to use it, I guess. I mean, close relatively. You could be like mid range and use it. It loses stuff like H slash, I think, though. So depending on distance, so that's not nice, but it's okay. It's better than like the dash attack. Better than these guys. It's it's definitely better than nunchuck. Better than kick because it's neutral application. Oh, it's like I think it's like a better ping. Yeah, it's a better ping. You can see right here, I got all like the six framers and then the four framers. Slide kick is mid. It's mid. You are mid. It is like a worse. I'm gonna move all these down because it's like, yeah, why would you ever use these moves unless you mess up? But like they aren't bad. It's just like, why would you ever use them unless you mess up? So I don't think they deserve to be placed in the like good tier. Slide kick is a projectile invulnerability move, and it also depends a lot on your momentum. So sometimes it's really useless, but you can also like prank your opponent with it. It's not that good, honestly, because it as a move that like if the move isn't heavily disjointed, it puts yourself at a lot of risk, and you can sometimes end up ruining yourself. And it also is uh, minus on block, so you will be suffering if you land it. At least -1, and at worst -3. Or I guess at worst would be a parry, but it still has its use as a projectile invulnerability move that's sometimes like you don't want to go in the air like you do with jump kick. It's probably worse than burst, I'd say. Spark. Why would you use this over orb? It's not a bad move, it's just why would you use it over orb? You would rather save up for orb because orb is just that much better. It's not bad like these two are. It's not bad like those two are. It's just not good. Caustic Spike. Does the icon really look like this? Caustic Spike is an okay projectile. It is much like Remote Bomb, except it behaves differently. It's probably better than Remote Bomb. But Robot needs Remote Bomb more than Mutant needs Caustic Spike to win. I'll put it below Remote Bomb. Well, if Robot had Caustic Spike, would that be better? I think that would. I think most characters would prefer Spike over Bomb. Spin Cycle is kind of like Bounce Check. It's a better Bounce Check. It loses to some key moves like Shred, and that's a big one is Shred. And what was the other one? It loses to the Air Vertical Slash, which is not good. That one's really bad. And it also loses to Downward Cleave a lot. But other moves that it beats, when it does beat them, it's very useful. But the problem is those hardly ever come into play. It has a surprising amount of hit stun too, but it's probably better than Car Mode. But it's also useless in combos. Like you'd never use it ever, unless you're bad. Hmm. Yeah, I'd probably put it above it. What is it? Spot dodge? Never. I don't think I've ever even seen anyone click spot dodge now. The problem is like if spot dodge would win in the situation you're in, you might as well just jump or air dash back. And if those don't work, then grab on your own, I guess. Spot dodge is not useful. Like, it's a technically beat grab move, but as Cowboy, you don't really want to be in grab range anyways. You want to be in mid range. And most of the time, you're just hurting yourself by doing it. It's not even that good as like a defensive option either. It's like it's hurting yourself in a more extreme way than push block is, but not like that extreme. Sticky bomb its effect is okay, but the move itself is hard to use. That's the problem with it. Like the much like overflow, the effect is good, but it's hard to use. You can, if you're good at it, you could probably set it up at the end of a combo if you trade some damage for it. It's kind of the opposite of overflow in that way, where you can trade the beginning of a combo of overflow for uh, some. You can get overflow in the beginning of your combo. You know, you know, Stinger. It's a guard break. It's pretty good. It's okay. Where's my other guard breaks? I don't even know whether guard breaks are in this game. It's probably not as good as all those projectiles. Guard breaks are inherently risky, and that's the problem with them. Put above those. But you do obviously get a good reward if you do it. Stomp is a better stinger because it is a low, even if it is proration 3. I'll rate the whole boost mechanic with store momentum. Boost is obviously very, very good. The problem is it's costly. Not as costly as burst. It's not as good as orb though. Substitute is like roll, where it doesn't really get you anything, but it can sometimes get you cheeky free hits, which is okay. That's okay. It's okay. The effect is not as good as Sticky Bomb. It's kind of it's probably like down there. Summon is good. It's a very good projectile. Probably the best projectile because it has 3 different versions. And the kunai version is good versus robot. That's the matchup thing. The down summon is good otherwise, and you can stick your stuff on it like your grappling hook, which is pretty good. Movement at the end. Sweep, ninja sweep. Or actually, this looks like ninja and mutant sweep. Either way, they're both pretty good. Sweep is a very good move because it's probably the best ender in the game. Because you can just click it over and over and over again until your opponent decides, yeah, well, I guess I'll let you have the wake up setup, the wake up pressure. It also is a -1 on ninja, -1 starter, and I think it's 0 on mutant. That being said, it is only really useful in combos, and only really as an ender, which I think makes it probably worse than these projectiles and this movement option. Probably worse than the guard breaks too, and the quick attacks. Probably worse than burst, honestly. It's probably around these guys. Yeah, probably worse than optical, honestly. Oh god, man, this move actually, my estimations are going down very quickly because it's only really a combo ender when I'm thinking about it. This is like the worst move in the game. Why am I even thinking about this? This is the worst move in the game. It's better than this. Swipe. Swipe has 2 versions, the 3 frame and the 5 frame one. Swipe is obviously good. It exerts pressure like many of the other moves do. The problem with it is a lot of mutants are scared to click it. Yeah, that's right. It's just a broken move that people don't like to click because they're scared and they're scared little babies. Mm. The only downside you could say about swipe is that like if your opponent does nothing, you just have to click it again. Or I don't know. There's no downside to swipe. Swipe is just good. Swipe is a good move. People who don't think swipe is a good move are coping. It's probably like the second best normal in the game besides low swipe. You probably won't. Oh man, it is a really good move. Probably better than air dash. Not as good as Geyser though. Geyser, the anti-setup potential is super important, and flamethrower, the combo damage is really important. Obviously, boost is just like broken. It would be S tier if it wasn't in car mode. Gust, duh. Foresight, duh. Also, we can move that to the end as well, because that has character-specific things. Teleport is very, very, very good. It is definitely A tier. Teleport is better than Pounce, definitely. The reason why Teleport... Actually, let me find a good spot for it first. I think it's probably above Geyser. The reason Teleport is so good is because it allows you to run away really easy. You can avoid stuff that's annoying like Orb or Loic that are harassing you. Even stuff like Caustic Spike. You can just get out of the way and it allows you to set up gun very easily. It's combo glue if you mess up. You can just fix your combo. And it does that while also not just being the fix your mistakes thing. It also does good things on top of that. Uh, Also, it allows you to, after a combo, move close to your guy, close to the opponent, and set up wake up pressure. That's nice. That's nice. And it all costs 1 meter. It's super cheap. Very good. Temporal round is bullet, except it costs 2 meter, which is good, but 2 meter is very costly, which is the problem. With bullet, you get it right away. With You got to think about with temporal round, you have to wait a bit before you can use it. Essentially, that doesn't make it not good. It just makes it not S tier. Time splitter again. I don't know why. I've never seen anyone use it. It's probably worse than fatal cut. I don't think I've literally ever seen like anyone play the game and use that move. Unironically, temporal round can go up there. I mean, like 2 meter, the cost is like bad, but it's still bullet. This is telekinesis. It is bad. Why would you ever use it over orb? It's worse than spark bomb. Just don't know why you would ever use it over orb. Orb is just way better. This is worse. Concussive. It doesn't have the same spacing thing that concussive has, where concussive can outspace some annoying moves. It doesn't have the same combo potential that concussive has. It is not. I don't think it's plus on block like concussive is. Maybe it is, but it's not good. It is Wizard's like fastest move though, so I'm going to put it at the bottom of these because Wizard does really need it. And it's not like it's a bad move either. It's relatively quick. I think if you were to take away the whole Wizard aspect, it'd probably be down here with like Nunchuck. Yeah. Maybe I will put it down with Nunchuck. Put it below Nunchuck because it isn't as useful as Nunchuck. Wizard would definitely rather have Nunchuck. Uppercut is super, super good. It just exerts so much pressure. This is all about grounded uppercut. Air uppercut, who cares? They just needs the grounded to be like, this is good. It is one of the whole reasons like Ninja is able to compete with Mutant in a way that other characters can't. It's this and Backsway, and it shuts down every offensive option really, except for like KP and other super super committal options that only really work in specific scenarios. Which is why it's super good. It does so much for you, and yes, it is super punishable, but unlike Impale, which I also rated pretty highly, Impale only punishes setup, where this punishes any offensive option, and offensive options are way more common. And in the patch notes, they said you couldn't get a combo anymore, but I guess characters you can still get combos. Combos are still pretty common to get off this. Uh, yeah, I think it probably is better than Swipe. It's probably just a worse boost, honestly. So literally worst boost, because you don't need to be in car mode to use it. Both you can only use on the ground, let's say, because air uppercut's not real. But it also loses less hard to block. So I think that's fair. This is upward slice. Where's downward slice on here? Oh, I put it up here. I remember. Yeah, that's downward slice. It says upward slash or whatever. Upward slash. Oh my god, drift. There you go. I think it was right there. Upward slash is kind of bad. You can use it to go up and then draw a gun, I guess. That doesn't seem super useful to me. I don't know. It doesn't feel that good. It doesn't feel that good to use. Let's put it with the rest of the min moves. Probably better than all those guys. This is vertical slash. Vertical slash is good. It is +3 and a key part of Cowboy's block strings. I think it is. It is also a pretty good part of his combos as well. Thinking about where I want to put it. I'm thinking somewhere around here. Because it's kind of like kick, where it's like kick but better in combos but worse in neutral. Oops. Grabbing all this stuff. Put this somewhere below burst, I remember. Right there. Um, yeah, I think I do want to put it around kick and jump kick. Do I think it's better than chainsaw? I honestly don't. I honestly don't think it's better than chainsaw. Oh, you could also use it in the air though. Oh. When I think about it like that, hmm, I don't know, because the H slash also kind of covers that area, you know? No, I'll leave it right there. Vacuum is very, very bad. It is worse than all these like bad mid ones. You're not. Maybe it is. Just put it right in there. It's with all those bad mid ones. It's probably the worst of the bunch. Worse than. No, it's not worse than gunpole because gunpole you have to do a whole bunch of hoops to get that. Well, clutch is good. Probably the second best out of. Yeah, probably the second best out of all the projectiles. Because it's anti-setup. It's just basically completely safe to use. Protect yourself. It can hurt your enemy. It could do a lot. Wheelie is second worst. Should be in car, but vacuum is just that bad, people. This vacuum does not punish anything. I guess it punishes like flame wave at specific ranges, but well, you know what? Waiting is the best move in the game. Um, what would I rate waiting? That's crazy. Because again, waiting doesn't make any progress, but in against a good player, waiting is not going to do you any favors. But no player is perfect. Every player is a little bit bad. And because of that, waiting can sometimes just let your opponent do lose for themselves, essentially. You can do yourselves a favor. Um, I think it probably has to go with the rest of these guys. Waiting is very strong because it allows you to wait for the right time to strike. Whiff canceling is very bad. Worse than launch? I don't know about that. Probably, it's honestly probably better than launch. Because at least sometimes it's useful. I mean, like, once in a blue moon. Ah, man, if it's once in a blue moon useful, I had to put it above those bozos, though. It's very bad, though. Also get whip wave. Whip wave is really bad. Why would you ever use that move? Like, sometimes you can use it after a burst thing, but it's not, like, good. It's not good. Also, I forgot about, this has, like, a million hit stun. I'm moving this up. What was I thinking with this one? um, Upward slash does have, like, a million hit stun. Probably, like, it's, like, worse. It's, like, worse these guys. There you go. Okay, and then let's talk about forward. This is walk forward, dash forward, forward on like car mode, all that kind of stuff. Some of them have sliders, some of them move fast, some of them move slow. It's a mixed bag. Forward is not really that important, I think. Usually, the only time you really see like people moving forward is on the minimum amount of distance, because if you move any further, it takes like more frames, and then you can get hit by a lot of stuff. I think moving forward generally is not that important. At least not with the actual like forward walk forward. but it is an option. Jumping, yeah, jumping is usually more important. Yeah, because like cowboy moves with dash. Usually when mutant gets in, it's I guess when you do get in, it is with this. But I think like really it's you and your opponent inching closer towards each other. Because a lot of the times how you get in when you get in for free is like with super dash. I think a lot of characters value that more than uh, normal dash. Backdash is a lot more important though because it allows you to get out of your opponent's pressure. Probably one of the best moves at doing that too, but not up close. Probably top of B tier because yeah, that's kind of funny. I kind of like how that looks. Maybe I'll just leave it like that because of the style points. But backdash is useful at mid to long range, but once you get up close, it basically becomes a dead move. But if you're not in the close range, it's very good because it allows you to escape a lot of your opponent's pressure for free. Essentially, you eat a little bit of sadness, but we all know sadness isn't real. Super dash, backdash is the same on every character pretty much, except Cowboy who has backwalk. But we don't talk about Cowboy. We hate Cowboy here. Super dash is different on every character. On Ninja and Mutant and Wizard, I guess it is good for getting in because sometimes you can just get in for free when your opponent backdashes or allows you to do whatever. And it's good for like IASA baiting, IASA baiting, and that's good for Wizard. And it's okay for like Mutant and Ninja, I guess. It's not super useful for them, but it does exist. For Robot, it's a lot worse. Robot's super dash is very, very bad. It's only useful if your opponent is going to be blocking that turn, like, and you know for certain because they have to. Otherwise, you're probably going to be either running face first into your bomb or first face first into a -6. So if this was Robot Super Dash, probably top of C tier. And for everyone else, this is oh yeah, Cowboys also goes into the air, but I don't think that really matters. For everyone else, this is probably mid, probably bottom of mid. Let's just say it's worse than normal one. This is get up. Okay, getting up is actually worst move in the game because if you're good, you don't get hit. Take the L. Take the L. You don't get up if you get hit. We'll put it top of D tier because I want launch to be the worst move in the game. I have no bias in this, but I am biased. No, because you don't ever have to click it. Yep, it's the worst move in the game. If you don't ever have to click it, then how can it be a good move? Return is a lot better than dash back actually, but you do have to use step to use it first. Return's pretty good. Return has a solid niche where it's like it can get you out more safely than because return doesn't actually count as a backwards movement, which is kind of weird, but it's definitely good for robots. So what is this? Down? What are the down arrows? I know this is super fall and this is super jump. Down arrows? I don't know. I don't know what that is. Super fall is like bad. It's like bad, but like it's okay. It's just so you and your opponent can get to neutral faster and start actually playing the game instead of falling for like 60 frames. Like, yeah, it has that niche, but let's put it at the bottom. There you go. Super jump, it depends on the character. For robot, it's slightly better. For everyone else, it's slightly worse. If we're talking about robot, it'd probably be. You got to consider it's also very important in combos. But in neutral, it's kind of like eh. For robot, it's actually okay in neutral, but for everyone else, it's like eh. I don't want to use this move. We'll put it at bottom of A tier because the combo usage. Actually, let's put it top of B tier because combo usage. And then for robot, it'd be bottom of A tier. And then hustle, we'll get your only move is hustle. It's the best thing. So hustle's obviously S tier. What would I actually put it? Hustle's pretty bad for everybody, except for like Mutant. Mutant has an okay hustle because it gives him his pips back, which he wants. But other than that, it's like why you're opening up yourself to so much liability. And obviously, like Wizard can capitalize on the projectiles a lot more to like protect himself from being killed from hustle. But other characters can't do that as much. Hustle's pretty bad. Usually just do it to waste time because you're a funny guy. You can use it in combos mm, if you're freaking cowboy. Ah, man, you can put it at bottom of C tier. Like it has a niche sometimes. And that's the tier list. Yeah, that is everything you need to know. Here's the full tier list in its all its glory. Every move truly ranked. Let me review this one more time to make sure it all looks right. Shoot, obviously the best move of the game. Yep, all that stuff looks good. Yeah, yeah. I feel like all these moves are pretty good. Mm-hmm. You can see like, okay, I think it goes from like these are the busted moves, right? Where it's like these moves you need to be using them constantly. Where it's like if you can get these moves off constantly, you win the game. If you can grab your opponent constantly, if you can, well, block's more there of necessity, but if you can block and parry your opponent's Shazam all the time, then you win. If you can step on your opponent the whole time, you win. If you shoot your opponent the whole time, you win. And then this is just shooting but worse. Foresight is just shoot but like the bonus. Gust is like projectile but bonus. Combo damage. Uh, all that good stuff. Yeah, movement. A low block is just worse block. Mm. And then we got some good, like especially good quick moves. I think I just put this here because this is a good combo move, but it's also good in neutral. Yeah, and then we got the grab avoiders, some especially good supers and projectiles and stuff. Yeah, it looks good. And then we got all the got this like the six framers and then the quick attacks and stuff. Some setup options and pressure options. Yep, projectiles. We got the whole projectile lineup right here. Some guard breaks. Kind of bad, like but quickish attacks. And then like some combo moves that like you don't really need, but like they're there, I guess. Yeah, and then all this is I don't care about these moves. These moves all suck. And then these are truly the worst of the worst. Shoot roll, it's just worse. It's worse shoot in every way. Like shoot is good, that's why it's at the top. But shoot roll is like it's worse shoot in every single way. Caltrops, why would you use that? You don't want to use thousand cuts in the first place, so these are down here. They're just worse overhead, worse impale, worse corkscrew, whiff, haha, and whiff. Nothing, nothing. Give your opponent free money, and then if you literally don't have to click this button if you just win the game.